Story 1. So I'm a 16-year-old guy and I'm in high school right now. And my mom got married to my stepdad Eddie 2 years ago. My mom is 40 and he's 42 years old. My parents never got married. I was actually the result of a really short fling after college that they thought would end in a couple of months. But then my mom got pregnant and she did not want to terminate it. So she had me and my dad also wanted to be a part of my life. So they have shared custody of me and I switch homes every month. I spend the year alternatively with my mother and my father, splitting my time equally between them. I love my parents, and I know that both of them have made quite a number of sacrifices for me in order to be close to me. The first and biggest one is that they have had to live in the same city for years, so I don't find the commute between the two houses too difficult to deal with. I did not know about it earlier, but now I know that both my parents have had to give up on multiple opportunities to rise in their careers just because they had to remain in the same city and live close to each other. All for my sake. My mom apparently also had to reject several men who were head over heels in love with her because of the child, because she wanted to focus on raising me instead of getting married and having to deal with having a husband and balancing her work life and her personal life and all that jazz. I know these things now, thanks to Eddie indirectly, because he's not exactly the best stepfather that one could ask for. And my mother has had to tell me all of this in order to make me accept him, because she thinks that if she could make so many sacrifices for my sake, I should be able to return the favor at least a little bit and accept Eddie. And I don't know how that works, because I did not ask her to make these sacrifices for me. She could have easily just terminated the pregnancy or just let my father take over raising me entirely. But anyway, I never argued with her about any of this because I love her, and I want it to be happy. So I was ready to accept Eddie, even though he was not a very nice guy. And by not a nice guy, I don't mean that he is mean to me in any way whatsoever. I just mean that he doesn't like me, and he doesn't bother to hide it. I don't know what kind of 42-year-old has issues with a 16-year-old guy, but he definitely does. I don't know why he doesn't like me because I never did anything to piss him off. And as a matter of fact, I have always tried to be nice to him because that's how my family has raised me to be nice to everybody, even when they show you that they don't like you. He never speaks to me rudely and never makes comments about me as a reason behind that, is that he doesn't speak to me at all. He pretends like I don't exist in the family, and this has been going on for the past 3 years. I literally have no idea what I ever did to piss him off. But one day, he just decided that he was not going to speak to me, and he was going to start acting like I was not there at all. It is the weirdest thing in the world, and I'm not really used to this kind of treatment. It's like he's giving me the cold shoulder for something, but I don't know what it is, so I can't even fix my behavior, because I don't even know what his problem with me is. My mother says that that's just the way he is. He does not have a problem with me, but he doesn't necessarily like me either. However, I feel like if you don't like somebody, there should at least be a reason for it, especially when you're 42 and the other person is literally just 16. I guess it has something to do with the dynamics of me being my mother's first child or whatever. I don't even know. But the bottom line is that he does not like me, and he has made it very obvious. Earlier, we used to get on okay, and the first couple of times that he came home, he would interact with me and ask me all sorts of questions about my life, and I would be very polite and answer him. But after one visit, he just decided that he was not going to speak to me. It was very random, and I did not understand why he did that. At the time, I did not question it because I thought maybe he had just forgotten to say hi to me or whatever. But then it happened so many times it became hard to ignore. So I even asked my mother if I had done something to make him angry because he was acting like I was not there in the house, and he would turn his face away every time I entered the living room or any room that he was in. And she did not tell me anything about it. She just said that he was trying to wrap his head around the fact that now he would have to deal with me being there all the time. And maybe he was just not used to it because before this, he had only dated women who did not have kids. I found that hard to believe because he himself had 2 kids. He had 2 sons, one was 15 and the other was 12. Their mother had passed away in an accident after the younger sibling was born. Also, it was not true that I would be there all the time because, as I had mentioned above, I used to go to my dad's house to live with him every other month. But anyway, a few months passed that way, and eventually I just accepted the fact that this was how he was, and he was not going to speak to me anymore. After a year of being in a relationship, he proposed to my mother, and they got married a few months later. After their marriage, Eddie moved into the house with his kids. Before that, I had only met his children a couple of times, and even they had been taught by their father not to speak to me. It was just so crazy, and I don't even know how I dealt with that for so long. For years, as a matter of fact. Before getting married, Eddie and my mother used to live separately because Eddie's mother was really sick, and she used to live with them. But after they got married, he decided to move her in with his sister so she would be able to take care of her. And he moved in with my mom into our house with his children. I don't know if any of you guys have ever experienced this, but it's really not easy to live in the same house with a bunch of people who won't talk to you and pretend that you don't even exist. But I had to put up with that, and it made me feel really bad because I felt like I was a criminal of some sort. Judging by the way they treated me, the worst part was that I never got to find out what I did wrong in the first place. I still have no idea, but at least I'm not living with them anymore. So it doesn't matter. Anyway, years passed and their behavior did not change even though I got used to it. I was already used to Eddie not speaking to me whenever he would come over to visit my mother, which was quite frequent. And after they got married, I got used to him and his kids living in the same house with me and not speaking to me. Every time I would go to my mother's place, I would have to prepare myself mentally to only talk to my mother for the next couple of weeks. She was the only person who would speak to me in that house, and everybody else pretended like I was not there, like I was invisible. It was hurtful, but I did want to spend time with my mother. So I had to deal with it because I knew that she was not going to talk to Eddie about it. Trust me, I had tried to convince her in numerous times to talk to him about it and get to the bottom of this, or at least try to solve it. But she told me that she had already spoken to him about it, and there were a couple of personal reasons that she could not disclose to me, which is why he refused to acknowledge my existence in the house. And she could not do anything about it because she understood where he was coming from. And she also understood why I felt bad about it, but I would just have to suck it up and deal with it if I tried to argue with her, then stand up for myself. She would get all emotional and tell me that I was being ungrateful because I was overlooking the fact that she had made so many sacrifices for me, so I could surely just give Eddie a pass for behaving with me the way that he did, and just deal with it for her sake. I wanted to fight with her, but I did not want to hurt her feelings. I never even told my father about any of this because I knew that if he got to find out about it, he would be very upset and would definitely drag my mother for this. They were very different people and had very different ideas on how to bring me up. So they kept having little arguments and fights. But I knew that something this huge would probably lead to my father filing for full custody or something extreme. I did not want to stir up drama, so I avoided telling him and pretended that everything was fine with my mother and her new family. Eddie and my mother had been together for 1 year before they got married, and it has been 2 years since they have been living together. So I have been putting up with this sort of behavior for 3 years now, and I have been pushed to my limit and stretched very thin. Recently, what happened was what really pushed me off the edge, and I decided that I was no longer going to put up with this. Last month, I was supposed to be spending the month at my mother's house, and as usual, Eddie and his kids had been ignoring me. I was already going through a rough patch because I have been fighting with a couple of my friends from school, and I was really not in the right headspace at the time. So about 2 weeks ago, when I woke up one morning and I realized that the house was absolutely empty, I started losing my mind over it. Even up until the night before, everything had been normal, or as normal as it gets in my mother's house. They have been all talking to each other and ignoring me, but there was no mention of them going anywhere at the time. But when I woke up the next morning, I saw that the house was empty, and I immediately called my mother up to ask about it. I had no idea where they were, but thankfully my mother did answer the call. When I asked what they were playing at, she told me that she, Eddie, and the kids were going out on a little trip for the week and asked me to stay in the house and take care of it. I'm on summer break right now, so I don't have school, and I don't really have to go anywhere, but I don't think it's appropriate to leave me at home all by myself and expect me to act like a watchdog. I was not on board with that plan, and I told my mother was my step. I was not ready to stay at home all day and watch the house. If she wanted something like that, she probably should have just amped up the security around her house instead of tricking me into staying home. I was also just mostly upset that they had not even told me about their plan to go out on the road trip and left me at home all by myself. They didn't even have the courtesy of letting me know about it beforehand, so I could decide for myself if I wanted to do it or not. I probably just would have said yes because as a high school guy, there is literally nothing more that we want than an empty house all to ourselves. I probably would have invited a couple of my friends over and lived it up for a few days, but I was so pissed off that I didn't even feel like doing that because my mother was treating me like crap and it made me feel really bad. I was also fighting with my friends, so I did not really have anybody to invite at the time, and I was just going through an overall bad time. And I told my mother that she needed to apologize to me for doing this, and I could understand that Eddie did not like talking to me, but the bare minimum that they could do was at least tell me that they were going out somewhere before they left. It was not very nice to just wake up one morning and realize that you were all alone. And she told me that I was making a big deal out of this and that I needed to get over it. She did not even wait for me to respond. She just hung up the call when I tried to call her back. She did not accept it and texted me back saying that she was trying to enjoy her trip and that she would talk to me once she was at the hotel. I was so upset about everything that I decided to leave. I knew that it would mean that the house would be completely empty, but I didn't care. I had tried to call my mother after that to let her know that I was leaving, but she did not answer my call and everything went straight to voicemail. So I locked up the house and kept the keys of the house under a potted plant, which my mother usually does when she leaves. And then I went over to my dad's place to live with him. Once I got there, he was actually surprised to see me back so early because he had expected me to return after 1 week since I was supposed to be living with my mother until the end of the month. But I have had enough, so I just came back to him and I ended up telling him everything that had been going on. I told him all about Eddie and his ridiculously heavy around me and how he had even trained his kids not to talk to me. I felt like I had done something wrong, but I didn't even know what, and it was getting on my nerves. Then I told him how my mother did not even want to talk to him about this and just let everything go on the way it was, no matter how much it hurt me. Her excuse for that was that she believed that he had his personal reasons and they were valid, but she was not even willing to tell me what those reasons were, so I would be able to make sense of what was going on around me. I had put up with this for long enough, just for my mother's sake. I wanted her to be happy, and she kept reminding me that she had made so many sacrifices for me in her life, so I could do this for her. But this was getting way too much to take. I was not going to tolerate it anymore, and I was done. I had to tell my father about it, because he deserved to know what my mother was putting me through, and maybe he would be able to do something about the situation, because I was just so sick and tired of being treated like this, even when I have not done anything to piss anyone off, and I have always tried my best to be kind and compassionate towards everybody. Then I told him about how my mother had left me at home alone without even telling me that she and her husband and his kids were going out. And she just expected me to agree to take care of the house and make sure that everything was in its place and live on my own for the next week just because she wanted to take a trip. That was not even my biggest problem. My problem with that was she did not even think that it was important to tell me about it when I tried to talk to her. She just kept hanging up and declining my calls like I was not even important to her. She had really crossed a line, and I couldn't put up with this anymore. After I was done telling my father about all of this, I started crying because I didn't realize just how much all of this had been weighing on me for the past couple of years. I did have a normal relationship with my mother before that, but after she got together with Eddie, everything changed and nothing was the same anymore. I felt like I was insignificant to her, and it was very difficult for me to accept. After venting to my father about all of this, he just said one thing to me, and that was that he was going to take care of everything for me now. He was obviously very upset, but whatever that he had to say to my mother, he did not say any of it to me. You just told me that he was really glad that I had shared this with him, and now it was all off my chest. He told me that I was going to be living with him, and if I wanted to go back to my mother, that was my choice. But he would not suggest doing that to me anyway. I'd been living with him, and I did not try to call my mother after that day. And the funny part was that she didn't try to call me either. The least that she could have done was try to keep in touch with her son, whom she had left at home, all on his own while she traveled with her new family. I was really emotionally hurt by what she was doing, but after speaking to my father, I was feeling considerably lighter, and I had decided that I was not going to let this bother me. For about 5 days, we have no contact, and then when she finally called me, I thought it was going to be to check up on me. But when I answered the call, she was yelling at me at the top of her lungs. They took me a few seconds to realize that she was yelling at me because I had left the house and they had been robbed. Apparently, a lot of stuff that they had left in the house was now gone, including that television and a couple of other expensive items. For some reason, she was blaming me all for it. I don't know why she was doing that, because I had tried to call her and inform her that I was leaving and I was going to stay with my father after she had stopped yelling. I told her that I was not happy about the way she had been treating me, and I had tried to contact her several times after she had hung up, but she kept declining my calls. So she told me that I could have texted her, and as valid as her point was, I told her that I didn't do it on purpose because I was mad. I thought it was very obvious, and I had made it very clear to her that I was upset, so she should not have expected me to stay back in the first place. We got into a massive fight about it because she believed that I should have stayed at home no matter how angry or upset I was, because this was a matter of safety, and she had been trusting me and counting on me, but I did not tell her to do that. In fact, I had tried my very best to let her know that I was leaving and I did not want to stay at home alone, but she disregarded all of my calls, so now she had to pay the price for it. These were the consequences of her actions, not mine. I found it very ridiculous that they were trying to blame this all on me, including Eddie. The first time that he spoke to me in the last couple of years, and it was only to yell at me and blame me for my carelessness. And he said a couple of other very confusing things as well, like he had always known that I would be the cause of ruin for them. I don't even know what that is supposed to mean because we don't even interact. I don't know how he came to that conclusion without even speaking to me anyway. My parents are now fighting because my dad thinks that this is my mom's fault, and so do I. But she thinks that this is my fault, and now my mother is demanding that my father pay her for the damages, since she thinks that if he is defending me for doing this, he should be ready to pay the price for it. I don't understand what to do now, and she will only drop it if I at least apologize to her and her family. I don't want to do that, but I also don't want her to keep bothering my father either. Ada for leaving my mother's house unoccupied to go live with my father because she and my stepdad left me home alone to go on a trip with his family without even bothering to inform me. Update 1. So it has been 2 weeks since the incident, and a lot of things have come to light since then. First of all, I was finally able to figure out why Eddie hated me so much. Apparently, as it turns out, when they had first started dating, Eddie had asked my mother if he could bring his mother over to live with them. My mom had said no because she was not comfortable with the idea of them moving in together so soon, and definitely not okay with the idea of her mother-in-law, who was ailing, to come live with her. She thought that it would be too much work for her and was not up for it, even though Eddie had made it very clear that she had a full-time nurse to look after her, and she just needed people to be around for her emotional needs. My mother was already not ready to move in with Eddie and be together, and she did not want the extra baggage of having her mother-in-law live with her. But instead of being upfront with him, she pinned it all onto me. And this was about 3 months into their relationship. We were getting pretty serious about each other at that point, even though I think it was way too soon for them. But anyway, that's my mother's choice, and I don't want to comment on that. She had basically lied to Eddie and told them that she would be okay with him moving in with her and bringing his mom and kids along to live with us. But she was not sure if it was such a good idea because of me. She had made me sound like some juvenile delinquent and told him that she had dated a couple of men in the past, but they had all been driven away because of me. Apparently, I terrorized her boyfriend because I wanted to protect her and keep everybody away, since I still believed that I could reunite my parents, and she did not want to break my heart. She also did not want Eddie's mother to suffer because of me, because she had told him that I had a lot of comments to make about his family. She had told Eddie that I had referred to his mother as a useless burden on the family, and I had told her that if she moved in with us, then I would make sure that she suffered for it, something that I would never say because that's just not me, and I know how insensitive it is. And apparently I had referred to his kids as little evil goblins who were going to ruin our family. Obviously, after that, he had stopped interacting with me at all because he did not want anything to do with me. He had actually believed my mother, even though I had always acted very normally around him, and he had no reason to believe her. I found out about it a couple of days ago, since Eddie had been pushing my mother to disown me and cut all ties with me because of what I had done, and thought that it was about time. But she did not want to do that, so she finally had to come clean to him. And now they are living separately because Eddie could not believe that he had been treating me so badly over a bunch of lies that my mother had fed him just because she was too afraid to tell him the truth, that it was she who was against having his sick mother live with them and not me. In that email, he even mentioned that he would not have had an issue if my mother had been honest with him and told him that she did not have the bandwidth to deal with a sick person in the house, and he would have just spoken to his sister and made sure that they took turns taking care of their mom. But she chose to lie to him and made up such a horrible story about me that he believed and kept mistreating me. He sent me an email to apologize to me for everything that he had put me through and hoped that I would forgive him. I have not responded to it yet because I don't know how to feel about any of this right now, and I just want to keep my head clear and not think about any of this at the moment. But anyway, that's why he had been mistreating me for so long, and my mother had been allowing it. In fact, it had been working out in her favor perfectly, and she had been feeding him all sorts of lies about how I kept getting in trouble at school, and he never even questioned it because he trusted her blindly. We never spoke, so he never found out that I was actually quite a normal guy, and that kept my mother's cover from getting blown. She is one twisted lady. I have to say that my father is now filing for full custody after we got to know all of this, and my mother is devastated because she claims that she loved us and wanted us to be a happy family together. But I'm sorry you can't have a happy family on your own terms and ruin everybody else's life. Update 2. So my dad is stepping up big time. He's actually going for full custody of me. But that's not all. Eddie, who's my mom's current husband, has also decided he's had enough and he's filing for divorce. I only found out about all of this because my mom started freaking out and sent a barrage of messages to my dad, practically begging him to intervene with Eddie, to try and fix things because she's terrified of losing all of us. It's pretty wild when I think about it. After everything that's happened, after all she's done, she's still expecting us to just jump in and help her sort her life out. Honestly, it blows my mind. For years, she's been okay with me being treated really badly, and now she wants favors? Here's the deal. She's been lying about me to her husband for years. I mean, making stuff up that made him and his family really dislike me. I was always the odd one out, and I never really knew why until I figured out she was behind it. It's like, imagine your own mom, who's supposed to protect and support you, is actually the one making your life tough. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, it's just brutal. So I've been stuck in this loop, right? Trying to understand what I did to make her husband and his whole family have it out for me. It's like walking on eggshells all the time, never knowing when I'm going to be blamed for something new or when another lie is going to come out. And through all this, my mom, she's just focused on herself, not caring about how all this chaos is affecting me. I finally had to take a massive step for my own sanity. I blocked her on everything. Phone, social media, you name it. I just can't have her in my life right now. Not with all this toxicity. I need space to breathe, to figure out who I am without her drama clouding everything. It's weird though, because I always loved her, you know? Despite everything, she's my mom. I tried so hard to make her happy, thinking maybe if she was happy, things would get better at home. Maybe she'd stand up for me, or at least stop the lies. But that was a one-way street. She was all about her happiness, her life, her needs. It never really crossed her mind to consider what her actions were doing to me, her own kid. So now here we are. I've spent years, literally years, putting her happiness first, thinking it would fix things. But I've hit my limit. I'm done sacrificing my well-being for her sake. It's time to look out for myself. Both of us, me and my mom, we were on the same page about one thing, her happiness, but not anymore. I'm stepping off that page. It's time to start a new chapter, one where I get to decide what's best for me without her weighing me down. And with my dad stepping up, things might finally start looking up. He's pushing for custody, and that could mean a whole new beginning for me. It's a lot to process, and it's going to be tough, but at least I'm moving in the right direction. Meanwhile, my mom's scrambling to keep her world from falling apart, reaching out to my dad to fix her mistakes. But some things you just can't fix. This might be one of those things. It's a mess, but it's a mess she made, and I'm just trying to find my way out of it without getting pulled back in. Update 3. So the big news around town, and basically the main gossip among everyone I know, is that Eddie has officially filed for divorce from my mom. It's like wherever you go, that's all anyone seems to be talking about. My entire family and even some friends my parents both knew are all buzzing about it. It's a bit overwhelming, to be honest. Now, about how my mom's handling this whole mess, she's taken to social media, posting all these super sad quotes and stuff. It's like every day there's a new gloomy post. My cousins keep texting me these screenshots of her posts, and it's just weird to see. I think she's trying to get sympathy or something, but it's not really working. It kind of feels like she's just putting on a show, you know? And honestly, I don't think posting sad quotes is going to fix anything she's messed up. It's like she's dug herself this huge hole with her actions, and now she's got to deal with the fallout. Update on the family situation. My dad now officially has full custody of me, which is pretty huge. The whole custody battle was intense. It's been a few months of back and forth. My mom really put up a fight to keep custody, probably because she knew how bad it looked with the divorce and all the stuff she'd done. Despite her efforts, with all the evidence we had about the stuff she put me through, she didn't really stand a chance of winning custody. But, credit where it's due, her lawyer was pretty crafty and managed to stretch the case out for a couple of months, making everything drag on longer than it needed to. But now, with the custody settled, I don't have to go see my mom unless I want to, which is a relief. My dad being the custodial parent means he's basically the main guy looking out for me, and he's doing a great job. My mom got some visitation rights in the end, but I'm not sure what to make of them. Right now, I just feel like I don't want to see her or talk to her. Maybe that'll change one day, but for now, I'm just really not interested in any visits. Life with my dad has been pretty stable and actually pretty happy. It's like a weight has been lifted, and I can just be a normal kid again. I've been reconnecting with my friends, mending some friendships that got a bit strained with everything that was going on at home. It's nice to just hang out with them without all this heavy stuff clouding everything. Looking ahead, I'm feeling pretty hopeful. It's like I can finally start moving on from all the drama that's been my life for the past few months. I'm looking forward to just normal, everyday stuff, hanging out with friends, spending quality time with my dad, and maybe even picking up some new hobbies or interests. Just living a life without constant stress and tension is something I'm really grateful for now. So that's the full update. Life's taking a turn for the better, and while the whole situation with my mom is sad, I'm ready to focus on the positive changes and the good things that are happening. Moving on feels good, and I'm just going to take things one day at a time, enjoying the peace and stability I have now. Story 2. This story is titled, Parents Raised My Rent to Support My Golden Child Brother. So I left, and now they're desperate for me to come back. Hey everyone, I just wanted to share something real with you. The channel's been slowing down a bit recently, and honestly, I put a lot of time and effort into finding these stories to keep bringing you the best content. If you enjoy what I do, it would mean the world if you hit that subscribe button. Your support really makes all the difference and keeps this journey going strong. Thanks so much for being here with me. Now let's start the video. OP starts by saying, Hey everyone, my name's Alex and I'm 22. I don't usually post about personal stuff, but I feel like I need to get this off my chest. My family situation has been a mess lately, and I don't know what to do anymore. Maybe hearing some outside perspectives will help me figure things out. So, here goes. I'm currently in college, studying software design. It's something I've been passionate about for a long time, and my dream is to start my own company someday. I work part-time as a junior developer to save up money for my future, while also covering my personal expenses. Since my college is close to my parents' house, I decided to live at home to save on transportation and rent costs. But let me make this clear. I'm not freeloading. I pay my parents $550 every month to contribute to rent and other household expenses. I figured it was fair because it's probably what I'd spend if I lived with roommates, so why not help out my family instead? Things were going fine, or at least as fine as they could be living with my parents. Don't get me wrong, my relationship with them has always been a little complicated. It's pretty obvious they have a favorite child. My older brother, Ryan, is the golden child of the family. He's 23, married, and has 2 kids. Growing up, he was always the one who got into trouble. Skipping school, getting into fights, breaking curfews, you name it, Ryan did it. But no matter what he did, my parents always had his back. Meanwhile, I've been the one who tries to follow the rules, work hard, and stay out of trouble, yet I never get the same level of support or attention. Anyway, about a year ago, Ryan moved out with his wife and kids after borrowing money from my parents and his in-laws to start a business. He claimed it was this big opportunity in construction, and he even bought a house. I was skeptical, but I figured, hey, maybe this time he's actually serious about taking responsibility. Fast forward to now, and surprise, surprise, he's back. He showed up at my parents' house with his entire family, claiming he just needs to stay for a while until a massive payout from his business comes through. He's talking about millions of dollars and promising to buy our family a mansion in some rich neighborhood once he gets the money. My parents are eating it up like it's gospel, hanging on to every word he says. Here's the problem. While Ryan and his family live here rent-free, I'm still expected to pay my $550 every month. And guess how much Ryan is paying? Yep, zero. Nada. Zilch. My parents don't seem to care that he's contributing nothing. It's like they're blind to the fact that he's been leeching off everyone around him his entire life. Meanwhile, the house has turned into complete chaos. Ryan's 2 kids are adorable, but they're toddlers, so they're naturally loud and messy. They've taken over the living room with their toys, and it's impossible to find any peace and quiet. I've tried setting up my workspace in my room, but even that isn't safe. The kids burst in constantly, and Ryan doesn't even try to stop them. He just laughs it off like it's no big deal. His wife isn't much better. She leaves their mess everywhere, from dirty dishes in the sink to laundry piling up in the hallway. What really gets to me is that Ryan and his wife act like they own the place. They've completely taken over the kitchen, and if I so much as ask for a turn to cook, I get eye rolls and passive-aggressive comments about how family shares everything. Yeah, except apparently they don't share in paying for anything. I tried talking to my parents about it, but they just brush me off. My mom told me I need to understand that Ryan is going through a tough time and that family helps family. When I asked if Ryan was going to start pitching in for rent or groceries, she got defensive and told me not to bring it up again. At this point, I feel like a stranger in my own home. I work hard to save money and plan for my future, but it feels like none of that matters to my parents. All they care about is Ryan and his business that may or may not even exist. It's like they're living in this fantasy world where Ryan is some kind of self-made millionaire, and I'm just here to foot the bill while they wait for his big payday. I thought about moving out, but the idea stresses me out. Rent is expensive, and I don't have a huge income. My part-time job pays decently, but between tuition, bills, and trying to save for my future, there's not a lot left over. Plus, I feel like moving out would be admitting defeat. Why should I have to uproot my life because Ryan refuses to take responsibility? It's not fair. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is whether I'm in the wrong here. Should I suck it up and pay more to keep the peace? Or am I right to feel like this is completely unfair? I've always been the type of person who avoids conflict, but this situation is pushing me to my limit. I'm tired of being the one who always has to compromise while Ryan gets a free pass. So yeah, that's my current dilemma. I feel stuck between wanting to stand up for myself and not wanting to make things worse with my family. If anyone's been in a similar situation, I'd love to hear how you handled it. I'll keep you all updated on what happens next. Thanks for reading. Update 1 point. Hey again, it's Alex. So, like I said in the first post, I've been trying to figure out how to handle all this mess with my family. Things were already tense, but recently, it's gone from bad to worse. Honestly, I don't even know where to begin. Last week, my mom came into my room, acting like she was just checking in on me, but I could tell something was up. She started with small talk, asking how work was going, but then quickly shifted the conversation. She said something like, "You know, Alex, since Ryan and his family are staying with us now, the household expenses have gone up a lot." I could feel where this was heading, but I didn't say anything yet. Then she hit me with it. "We're going to need you to pitch in a bit more to help cover everything." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I mean, I've been paying my share, more than my share, for years. I've never once asked for a free ride or complained about my contributions. Meanwhile, Ryan and his wife aren't paying for anything, and they've practically taken over the house. So I asked her straight up, "What about Ryan? Is he going to start paying rent too?" My mom's reaction? She got annoyed and said something vague about how Ryan is in a tough spot right now and how family helps family. Then she just walked out of my room like the conversation was over. I was fuming. It's not even about the money at this point. It's the principle of it. Why am I the only one who has to step up and help the family while Ryan gets a free pass? The next day, my dad backed her up. Over breakfast, he casually mentioned that I should consider contributing more since we're all in this together. I tried to argue my case, but he cut me off before I could even finish. He just got up, said, "Think about it," and walked away. I glanced over at Ryan, hoping for some kind of support or acknowledgement, but he just looked at me and kept eating like nothing was happening. Later that night, after I got home from work, I decided I needed to confront my mom again. I told her I couldn't afford to pay more than I already was. Between tuition, bills, and saving for my future, I was stretched thin as it was. But she didn't care. She started going on about how I needed to sacrifice for the family and how Ryan has kids to take care of. Like, yeah, I get that he has kids, but he's also an adult. Why is it suddenly my job to support his family? Since then, my parents have been giving me the cold shoulder. They barely talk to me, and when they do, it's just passive-aggressive comments about how I'm not being a team player. Ryan, of course, hasn't said a word about it. He just sits back, letting me take all the heat while he continues to live rent-free. His wife hasn't been much better. She started making little remarks like, "It must be nice to have so much money saved up," or, "I wish we had the luxury of focusing on ourselves like you do." I almost laughed the first time she said that because, seriously, what luxury? I've been busting my ass to save every penny while she and Ryan contribute absolutely nothing. What really stings is how little my parents seem to care about everything I've been doing. I've been working hard, staying out of trouble, and paying my way, but none of that seems to matter to them. Meanwhile, Ryan screws up constantly, and they bend over backward to support him. It's like no matter what I do, I'll never measure up to him in their eyes. The breaking point came a few days ago. I was sitting in my room, trying to get some studying done, when my mom barged in without knocking. She dropped a toddler bed in the corner of my room and said, "We're going to set this up in here for the kids. They need more space." I was stunned. My room is the one place in this house that's supposed to be mine. "This is my room. They're trying to turn it into a nursery. You can't just decide to take it over." She just rolled her eyes and said, "Don't be dramatic, Alex. It's not a big deal." I stood my ground, though, and eventually she stormed out, muttering something about how selfish I was. The next day, things escalated even more. I came home from work to find Ryan's wife going through my desk drawers. When I asked her what she was doing, she just smiled and said, "Oh, I was looking for a pen." A pen? There's an entire drawer full of pens in the kitchen, but she decided to invade my personal space instead? It felt so disrespectful. But when I brought it up to Ryan, he just shrugged and said, she didn't mean anything by it. I tried to let it go, but later that night, I overheard Ryan talking to my parents. He was saying something about how I need to be more supportive and how it's time for Alex to step up and help the family. My blood was boiling. Not only was he freeloading, but now he was trying to guilt trip me into giving up even more of my money and my space for him. That's when I realized I couldn't do this anymore. I've spent my whole life trying to be the good kid, thinking that if I worked hard enough, my parents would finally see my worth. But I've finally accepted that it's never going to happen. They'll always choose Ryan, no matter how much he screws up or how much I succeed. I started looking at apartments that night. It wasn't an easy decision. I don't have a ton of money, and I know moving out will make things even more strained with my family. But I can't keep living like this. I'm tired of being treated like a second-class citizen in my own home. If my parents want to put Ryan on a pedestal, fine. But they're going to have to do it without my help. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm officially done trying to please people who don't appreciate me. I haven't told my family yet, but I've started packing my things little by little. I don't know what their reaction will be when they find out, but at this point, I don't really care. I just want to get out and start living my own life. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'll update you soon with what happens next. Wish me luck. Update 2.0. Hey, it's Alex again. Things have been pretty crazy since my last update, but I'm finally starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel. After everything that's gone down with my parents and Ryan, I've made up my mind. I'm moving out. It's not going to be easy, but at this point, staying here feels impossible. So let me walk you through how I'm planning to pull this off without completely blowing up my relationship with my family. Well, not right away at least. First things first, I started looking for apartments. Let me tell you, finding a place that's affordable, close enough to work and school, and not a complete dump is harder than I thought. Most of the places I found were either way out of my budget or in neighborhoods that felt sketchy. I didn't want to rush into anything, but I also knew I couldn't stay in my parents' house much longer without losing my mind. Every day, the tension was getting worse. My mom kept dropping hints about how things are tight right now and how we all need to make sacrifices. Ryan, of course, was completely oblivious. He and his wife were busy turning the house into their personal playground, and I was just trying to stay out of their way. Eventually, a friend of a friend came through for me. They knew someone, a guy named Jake, who was looking for a roommate. Jake had just rented a small 2-bedroom apartment and needed someone to split the rent and bills. I was skeptical at first. I mean, moving in with a stranger isn't exactly ideal, but after meeting Jake and checking out the apartment, I started to feel like this might actually work. The place was nothing fancy, just a basic setup with a tiny kitchen and a shared bathroom. But it was clean, affordable, and only about a 20-minute walk from campus. The best part was far enough from my parents' house that I wouldn't have to deal with any surprise visits. After we talked it over, Jake agreed to let me move in. We settled on splitting everything 50-50, which would bring my share of the rent to around $400 a month, less than what I've been paying my parents. Even with bills and groceries added in, I'd still be saving money compared to what I'm dealing with now. It felt like a no-brainer. The tricky part was figuring out how to leave without creating a huge scene. I knew if I told my parents I was planning to move out, they'd do everything in their power to stop me. My mom would probably go full guilt trip mode, talking about how I was abandoning the family and how they needed me to help out. My dad would just get angry and accuse me of being ungrateful. And Ryan? He'd probably laugh it off and assume I was bluffing. So I decided to keep it a secret. Over the next couple of weeks, I started packing my stuff little by little. I didn't want to raise any red flags, so I hid most of it in the back of my closet or tucked it away in storage bins. When no one was home, I'd sneak a few things out to my car and drive them over to Jake's place. It was a slow process, but I knew it was the only way to avoid a full-blown family meltdown. During this time, I started pulling back from my family more and more. I stopped eating dinner with them, opting to grab quick meals in my room instead. I avoided any conversations about money or family responsibilities, and focused on getting through each day without losing my temper. It wasn't easy. Every time my mom made a passive-aggressive comment about how everyone needs to pitch in, or Ryan's wife left a mess in the kitchen for me to clean up, I wanted to scream, but I kept reminding myself that it wouldn't be like this for much longer. I had an end date in sight, and that kept me going. One of the hardest parts was keeping my cool around the kids. Like I've said before, I love my niece and nephew, but they've been driving me up the wall lately. They've taken over the living room, the kitchen, and even my room on some days. I can't tell you how many times I've come home from work or class to find toys scattered everywhere, sticky handprints on my desk, or crayon marks on my walls. I tried setting boundaries, but it was like talking to a brick wall. Ryan just laughed it off, and his wife acted like I was being unreasonable. "They're just kids, Alex," she'd say, like that was supposed to make everything okay. Meanwhile, I was counting down the days until I could finally have my own space again. The final straw came a few days ago when I overheard Ryan and my mom talking about my savings. I've been working my ass off for years to save up for my dream of starting a software company. It's not much yet, but it's mine. And I've been really proud of how disciplined I've been about sticking to my budget. So imagine my shock when I heard Ryan telling my mom that I should help the family by chipping in some of my savings. He actually said, "Alex doesn't need all that money right now. He can start his company later. Family comes first." Are you kidding me? I couldn't believe the audacity. I confronted him about it later, and he acted like I was the selfish one for not wanting to give up my hard-earned money. "We're all struggling right now, Alex," he said, like his situation was even remotely comparable to mine. I told him flat out that my savings were off limits and that he needed to start taking responsibility for his own family. He just rolled his eyes and walked away. That was it for me. I went back to my room, grabbed a box, and started packing the last of my things. I was done. I didn't care what my parents or Ryan thought anymore. I knew I deserved better than this. So now, everything is set. I've signed the lease, packed my stuff, and made plans to move out this weekend. I haven't told my parents yet. I figure it's better to rip the Band-Aid off once I'm already gone. I'll leave a note or something explaining my decision, but I'm not going to stick around for the fallout. They can deal with Ryan and his freeloading ways on their own. I know this is going to cause a lot of drama, but honestly, I don't care anymore. I need to do what's best for me. And staying in that house isn't it. I'm ready to start fresh in a place where I can actually focus on my goals without all the chaos and stress holding me back. Wish me luck, guys. I'll let you know how it all goes in the next update. Update 3. Hey everyone, it's Alex again. I finally did it. I moved out. Let me tell you, it wasn't smooth sailing, but I feel like a massive weight has been lifted off my shoulders. This whole experience has been a whirlwind of emotions. Excitement, fear, relief, but I don't regret a thing. Here's how it all went down. So, I planned my move for the weekend when I knew my parents and Ryan's family would be out of the house. They were going to some family friends' barbecue, and I figured it was the perfect opportunity to get everything done without confrontation. I spent the entire week leading up to it, packing the last of my things, making sure everything was ready to go. By the time Saturday rolled around, my car was packed to the brim, and I was ready to leave. I have to admit, it felt weird walking through the house one last time. For all the chaos and drama, it was still the place I grew up in. I stood in my room for a minute, just taking it all in. It wasn't fancy, but it had been my space for years. It felt bittersweet knowing I was leaving it behind, but I kept reminding myself why I was doing this. I needed to put myself first for once. When I got to my new place, Jake was already there to help me unload. I can't tell you how good it felt to see my stuff in an entirely new space, one that was all mine. The apartment isn't anything fancy, just a small 2-bedroom with a shared living room and kitchen, but it's quiet, clean, and most importantly, drama-free. I set up my room with my desk, bed, and a few personal touches. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The first night in my new place was surreal. I didn't realize how much noise and stress I'd been living with until I was surrounded by complete silence. No kids running around, no arguments about money, no one barging into my room without knocking. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and actually got some work done for the first time in weeks. It felt amazing. Of course, the peace didn't last long. By Sunday evening, my phone was blowing up. My mom had finally noticed I wasn't home and started calling nonstop. I ignored the first few calls, but eventually I knew I had to answer. When I picked up, she didn't even give me a chance to say hello before she started yelling. "Alex, where are you? Why aren't you home? We've been calling you all day." I kept my cool and calmly said, "I don't live there anymore. I've moved out." You could have heard a pin drop on the other end. Then she exploded. "What do you mean you've moved out? Why didn't you tell us? How could you do this to your family?" She went on and on about how I was abandoning them and how they'd been counting on me to help with expenses. When I tried to explain that I'd been paying more than my fair share for years, while Ryan contributed nothing, she completely brushed it off. "Ryan has kids, Alex. You don't understand what it's like to be a parent." That was the point where I knew there was no reasoning with her. I said, "Mom, I've done everything I could to help, but I can't live like that anymore. If you want to support Ryan, that's your choice, but I'm not going to keep sacrificing my own life for it." Then I hung up. I didn't have the energy to keep arguing. The next day, the messages started. My mom sent me a long text about how I was being selfish and ungrateful, followed by another about how I was tearing the family apart. My dad chimed in too, saying he was disappointed in me and that I needed to grow up and understand the importance of family. Ryan even had the audacity to text me saying, "Wow, way to screw over mom and dad when they need you most." Real mature. I didn't respond to any of it. I knew it wouldn't change their minds, and honestly, I was too exhausted to care. I spent the day settling into my new place, getting groceries, and organizing my room. For the first time in years, I felt like I was in control of my own life. A few days later, my mom called again. This time, she wasn't yelling. She sounded more desperate than angry. She started talking about how hard things had been since I left, how they were struggling to pay bills, and how Ryan's kids were upset that I wasn't around anymore. She even tried to guilt trip me by saying, "We've always supported you, Alex. Is this how you repay us?" I took a deep breath and said, "Mom, I love you, but I've been supporting myself for years. I've been paying rent, working, and saving for my future, while Ryan hasn't contributed a thing. I can't keep putting my life on hold to clean up his messes. It's not fair." She didn't take it well. She started crying, saying she didn't know how they were going to manage without me. It was hard to hear, but I stood my ground. I told her I wasn't coming back, and that they needed to figure things out with Ryan. After that, she hung up, and I haven't heard from her since. Ryan, on the other hand, hasn't stopped trying to contact me. He keeps texting, asking for money, and saying I'm being selfish for not helping out. At one point, he even said, "You've always been the responsible one. Why can't you just step up and help your family?" I almost laughed when I read that. The nerve of this guy. Despite all the drama, I feel like I made the right decision. My new place is quiet, my roommate is cool, and I'm finally able to focus on my studies and work without constant distractions. It hasn't been easy cutting ties with my family, but I know it was necessary. I can't keep sacrificing my own happiness and future for people who don't appreciate me. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful. Thanks to everyone who's been following my story and offering advice. It's helped more than you know. I'll probably post one final update soon to let you all know how things turn out. Final update. Hey everyone, it's Alex again, and this will probably be my last update. It's been a couple of weeks since I moved out, and honestly, I feel like a completely different person. The fallout from my decision hasn't been pretty, but it's also shown me who my family really is, and who I am when I'm not living under their constant judgment. So, let's dive into how things have been since I left. First off, my mom's reaction hasn't changed much. After her initial meltdown when I told her I was moving out, she switched into full-on guilt trip mode. The texts kept coming every single day, filled with dramatic statements like, "How could you leave us in this situation?" And, "Don't you care about your family?" At one point, she even said, "We sacrificed so much for you, Alex, and this is how you repay us?" It was hard to read those messages without feeling a pang of guilt. I mean, I do love my parents. They've done a lot for me growing up, and I'll always be grateful for that. But what they don't seem to realize is that love and gratitude don't mean letting yourself be taken advantage of. For years, I've been the one keeping things afloat while Ryan contributed nothing. I've paid my share, cleaned up their messes, and put my own needs aside time and time again. Enough is enough. I thought my dad might take a more practical approach, but nope, he's just as bad. He called me a few days after I moved out, and the conversation was exhausting, to say the least. He started off calm, asking me why I felt the need to leave without talking to them first. I explained as clearly as I could that I was tired of being treated like a second-class family member. I told him that I'd been paying rent for years, doing my part, and that it wasn't fair for them to expect me to shoulder even more of the financial burden while Ryan got a free pass. His response? "Alex, you need to understand that Ryan's in a tough spot. He's trying to get his life together. And as his brother, it's your job to support him. Family sticks together." I couldn't believe it. I said, "Dad, Ryan's been in a tough spot his entire life because you and Mom never hold him accountable for anything. I'm done cleaning up his messes. If you want to keep enabling him, that's your choice. But I'm not going to be part of it anymore." That didn't go over well. He accused me of being selfish, of abandoning the family, and even of turning my back on Ryan's kids. That one hurt the most because I do care about my niece and nephew. They're just kids, and none of this is their fault. But it's not my job to sacrifice my future for them, especially when their own parents refuse to step up. Speaking of Ryan, he's been blowing up my phone too. His messages are a mix of guilt-tripping and outright demands. One minute he's saying, "I can't believe you'd leave Mom and Dad in the lurch like this." And the next, he's asking for money to help get back on his feet. At one point, he even sent me this long message about how I've always been the responsible one, and how it's my duty to help him out because that's what family does. I didn't respond to any of it. Honestly, what's the point? Ryan has spent his entire life avoiding responsibility, and I'm not going to be the one to bail him out again. If he wants to turn his life around, great. But he's going to have to do it without my help. On the flip side, life in my new apartment has been amazing. It's small, sure, but it's quiet and peaceful, and I finally feel like I have space to breathe. Jake, my roommate, has been super chill. We split the bills and groceries evenly, and there's no drama, no guilt trips, no ridiculous expectations. I've been able to focus on my work and studies for the first time in what feels like forever. I even finished a big project for my software design class last week, something I probably couldn't have done if I was still living at home. The best part? I've started to feel like myself again. For so long, I was stuck in this cycle of trying to prove my worth to my parents, hoping that if I worked hard enough or contributed enough, they'd finally see me as equal to Ryan. But now I realize that's never going to happen, and that's okay. Their favoritism says more about them than it does about me. I don't need their approval to live my life or chase my dreams. I've been talking to a couple of close friends about everything, and their support has been a lifesaver. They've helped me see that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary. Just because someone is family doesn't mean they have the right to take advantage of you. That's a hard lesson to learn, but I'm glad I finally did. As for my parents and Ryan, I've decided to go low contact for now. I still check in with my mom occasionally to let her know I'm okay, but I keep the conversations short and steer clear of any topics related to money or Ryan. It's not perfect, but it's what I need to do to protect my sanity. Maybe one day things will get better, but for now, I'm focusing on myself. So, what's next for me? I'm going to keep saving up for my dream of starting a software company. I don't know how long it'll take or what challenges I'll face along the way, but for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful. I know I have the skills and determination to make it happen, and without the constant stress of my family weighing me down, I feel like anything is possible. To everyone who's followed my story and offered advice, thank you. Your support has meant the world to me, and it's helped me see that I'm not alone in dealing with toxic family dynamics. If you're in a similar situation, please know that it's okay to stand up for yourself. You deserve to be treated with respect, and sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away. This is Alex, signing off. Here's to new beginnings. Story 3. My dad denied my raise for 3 years, even though I was running the entire company and made my golden brother the CEO 2 weeks after his graduation. So I started consulting for his competitor. They pay 5 times more, and now they're collapsing and begging me to come back. Sup, Reddit. Didn't think I'd be posting here, but my family situation has gone completely nuclear, and I need to get this off my chest. My dad spent 3 years denying me raises while I basically ran his entire company, then handed my barely graduated golden child brother the CEO position. I walked out, started consulting for their biggest competitor, and now they're hemorrhaging money and begging me to come back. Spoiler alert, that's not happening. I, 31 male, a manufacturing engineer who's been working at my father's metal fabrication company since I graduated college at 22. My younger brother Tyler, 26 male, just graduated 2 weeks ago. Took him 6 years to finish his business degree because he changed majors 3 times and failed enough classes that he had to retake them. Meanwhile, I graduated in 4 years with honors in mechanical engineering, passed my PE exam on the first try, and have been the backbone of Dad's company ever since. Let me paint you a picture of my family dynamic. Dad owns a mid-sized metal fabrication company in Ohio. Started it 30 years ago, built it from nothing. I respect that grind. What I don't respect is how he's treated me versus Tyler our entire lives. Classic golden child situation where Tyler could do no wrong and I could do no right. Growing up, Tyler was the kid who got new bikes and video game consoles for Christmas, while I got practical gifts like clothes and school supplies. Tyler got his first car bought outright at 16, a nearly new Honda Civic. I had to work all summer at a hardware store and save every penny to buy a beat-up truck with 180,000 miles on it. When Tyler totaled that Civic 2 years later driving drunk, Dad bought him another one. No consequences, no questions asked. When I asked Dad why Tyler got everything handed to him, I got the classic, "Life isn't fair, son" speech. But apparently life was plenty fair for Tyler. Sports equipment, expensive clothes, spring break trips, Tyler got it all. I learned real quick that the way to get anything from Dad was to work for it. So that's what I did. I worked my ass off in high school, got a full ride to Ohio State for engineering. Tyler barely graduated high school, went to community college first because his grades weren't good enough for a 4-year school, then transferred to a state university where he proceeded to party his way through a 6-year undergraduate degree on Dad's dime. Dad paid his tuition, his rent, his car, everything. Meanwhile, my full ride still required money for housing and food, which I covered by working part-time at a machine shop. The favoritism didn't stop when we became adults. It got worse. When I graduated and started working for Dad's company, I thought finally, I could prove my worth. I started as a junior engineer making $45,000 a year. Not great for an engineer with a degree, but it was family business, and Dad promised me opportunities to grow. I believed him because I was naive and still wanted his approval. I jumped in with both feet, learned every machine in that shop, spent nights redesigning workflows to improve efficiency, studied lean manufacturing principles and Six Sigma methodology on my own time. Within 6 months, I'd reduced our scrap rate by 23% and cut production time on our most common parts by 15%. That translated to about $300,000 in annual savings for a company pulling in roughly $8 million a year in revenue. Dad's response to my first annual review? Good work, son. Keep it up. No raise, no bonus. Just a pat on the back. Year 2, I developed a new process for our aluminum extrusion line that increased capacity by 30% without additional capital investment. Designed and implemented a quality control system that virtually eliminated customer complaints. We landed 2 major contracts specifically because clients were impressed by our quality metrics and delivery times, both things I'd personally overhauled. Our revenue jumped to $10.5 million. Annual review time. Really proud of what you're doing here. But we need to watch expenses right now. Maybe next year. Still making $45,000. I asked about at least matching market rate for engineers with my experience. Dad said family business meant sometimes making sacrifices. Meanwhile, Tyler was in college posting Instagram stories from bars and music festivals, failing Intro to Business Economics for the second time. Year 3. Our company landed the biggest contract in its history, $2.3 million deal with an automotive supplier. I wrote the proposal. I designed the custom tooling. I project managed the entire thing from start to finish. We delivered ahead of schedule and under budget. The client was so impressed they signed a 3-year extension worth another $7 million total. I also trained 3 new engineers Dad hired, upgraded our CAD systems, and spent 6 months negotiating with suppliers to reduce our material costs by 12%. Revenue hit $12.8 million. Annual review. You're really valuable to this company. Essential, really. I asked for a raise to $65,000. Still below market rate, but closer. Dad hemmed and hawed, said cash flow was tight because of expansion costs, then suggested that if I really needed more money, maybe I should cut back on frivolous spending. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment and drove a 10-year-old truck. My frivolous spending was a gym membership and occasionally buying lunch instead of packing it. But sure, Dad, I was the problem. That same month, Dad bought Tyler a new F-150 as a college graduation gift. Tyler hadn't even finished yet, still had 1 semester left. The truck cost $48,000, more than I'd made in a year. I started seriously questioning my life choices. Year 4. I'm essentially running operations at this point. Dad's in his early 60s and semi-retired, spending most of his time golfing and traveling with Mom. The company is humming along at peak efficiency. We're up to $14.2 million in revenue with 18% profit margins, well above industry standard. I'm overseeing 12 employees, managing multiple major client relationships, and handling everything from production scheduling to strategic planning. I finally put my foot down. Market rate for a manufacturing engineer with my experience and responsibilities in Ohio is $85,000 to $95,000. I was still making $45,000. For context, some of the guys running CNC machines were making more than me. I wrote up a detailed proposal outlining my contributions, included comparisons to industry salary data, and requested $80,000. Still on the lower end, but reasonable. Dad's response? This feels like you're holding the company hostage. After everything we've given you, we hadn't given me anything. I'd earned every dollar. I'd transformed his company from a decent small business into a genuinely competitive mid-size manufacturer. But pointing that out got me nowhere. That's when Tyler graduated. Finally. 6 years, 2 major changes, 3 failed semesters that required retakes, and a 2.4 GPA later, he had a bachelor's degree in business administration. His crowning achievement was apparently not getting expelled. 2 weeks after graduation, Dad called a company meeting, announced Tyler would be joining the team as chief operating officer, would be learning the business from top to bottom before taking on a leadership role. The COO title was complete bullshit. Tyler didn't know the difference between a lathe and a mill, couldn't read a blueprint, had never managed anyone or anything. But there he was, strutting into the office in his new suits, acting like he'd earned something. His starting salary? $75,000. Plus company car. Plus performance bonuses tied to metrics I'd established and was maintaining. Tyler was making more than me on day one, despite having zero experience and zero contribution to the company's success. I kept my mouth shut. Figured maybe Tyler would surprise everyone. Maybe he'd actually work hard and prove himself. Maybe Dad would finally see that merit should matter more than birth order. I was wrong on all counts. Tyler spent his first month learning the business by showing up at 10 a.m., taking 2-hour lunches, and leaving by 3 p.m. He'd walk through the shop occasionally, interrupt people working to ask basic questions that showed he hadn't bothered to read any of the materials I'd prepared for him, then disappear back to his office to scroll through his phone. The few times he tried to contribute ideas, they were disasters. He wanted to switch suppliers to save 3% on steel without understanding that the cheaper supplier had quality control issues that would cost us 10 times that in rework and scrap. He suggested streamlining our inspection process, meaning eliminating critical quality checks, because it slowed things down. He tried to promise a client a delivery timeline that was physically impossible, and I had to spend hours explaining manufacturing constraints to both him and the very angry client. I was working 60-hour weeks cleaning up Tyler's messes while he collected his paycheck and took credit for anything that went right. Month 2 of Tyler's employment, I asked Dad for a meeting, laid it all out. My contributions over 4 years, my below-market salary, Tyler's lack of contribution and higher compensation. I requested $80,000 again, which was $5,000 less than Tyler was making despite my 4 years of experience and proven results. Dad's response, Tyler needs time to find his footing. You need to be patient and supportive. This is about family legacy. I asked point blank what I needed to do to earn a fair salary. Dad got uncomfortable and said, sometimes being part of a family business means making sacrifices. Tyler's going to run this company someday. You should be happy being part of building something bigger than yourself. There it was. Tyler's leadership role wasn't some distant future plan. It was already decided. I could work myself to death improving the company, but Tyler would inherit the kingdom I'd built. That night, I updated my resume for the first time in 4 years. 3 weeks later, Dad called another company meeting. My stomach dropped before he even started speaking because I knew what was coming. Tyler was being promoted to CEO. Dad would remain chairman, but Tyler would handle day-to-day operations and strategic direction. Tyler had worked there for exactly 2.5 months. He still couldn't explain what half our machines did. He'd yet to successfully complete a single project or initiative. His strategic direction consisted of implementing Pizza Fridays and suggesting we get a company ping-pong table. But there he stood, grinning like an idiot while Dad talked about fresh perspectives and new generation leadership and carrying on the family legacy. Not once did Dad mention the 4 years I'd spent transforming the company. Not once did he acknowledge my contributions. After the meeting, several employees came to me privately. They were worried. They knew Tyler was incompetent. They knew I was the one actually running things. They wanted to know what this meant for them. I told them I'd let them know soon. That night, I sat in my shitty apartment and made a choice. I'd spent 4 years chasing Dad's approval, working for below-market wages, building his company while he groomed Tyler to take credit for it all. I was done. I called Mark Chen. Mark runs the biggest manufacturing consulting firm in the Midwest. His company, Apex Manufacturing Solutions, works with mid to large manufacturers to optimize operations, implement new technologies, and solve complex engineering challenges. We'd crossed paths at a few industry conferences, and he'd mentioned multiple times that if I ever wanted to leave Dad's company, he'd be interested in talking. We met for coffee 2 days later. I laid out my experience. The process improvements, cost reductions, quality enhancements, client relationships I'd developed. Showed him the numbers backing it all up. Mark didn't even blink. I can start you at $160,000 base salary plus quarterly performance bonuses. Most of our consultants at your level are pulling in $200,000 to $220,000 total compensation first year. You'd be traveling about 40%, working with clients on projects ranging from 3 months to 2 years. We'll train you on implementation methodologies, project management, client relations, basically everything you've been doing, but with actual recognition and proper compensation. 5 times what Dad was paying me, plus bonuses, plus actual growth opportunities, plus working with competent people instead of cleaning up after Tyler. I accepted on the spot. 2 weeks' notice felt too generous, but I wanted to leave professionally. I typed up my resignation letter that night. Short and sweet. Effective 2 weeks from today, I'm resigning from my position. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll ensure a smooth transition of my responsibilities. I didn't mention the pay disparity. Didn't mention Tyler. Didn't mention the 4 years of watching Dad hand everything to his golden child while treating me like hired help. Just clean and professional. Handed it to Dad the next morning. He read it, set it down, and asked, "Is this about money?" "It's about fair compensation for fair work," I said. "I've been running operations here for years at entry-level pay, while you promoted Tyler to CEO after 2 months. I found somewhere that values my contributions." Dad's face went red. "After everything this family has done for you." "What did this family do for me?" I interrupted. "I worked here for 4 years, transformed your operations, and got 0 raises. Tyler worked here for 2 months, contributed nothing, and got made CEO. Don't talk to me about family." He tried the guilt trip, the loyalty speech, the "you're being selfish" routine. I'd heard it all before. This time, I didn't care. 2 weeks, I said. I'll document everything I can. After that, good luck. Those 2 weeks were hell. Dad alternated between trying to guilt me into staying and being passive-aggressively hostile. Tyler acted like I'd personally betrayed him by leaving. He actually said, "How am I supposed to run things if you're not here?" That's when I realized Tyler thought I'd always be there. The plan was never for Tyler to learn the business. The plan was for Tyler to have the title and salary while I did all the actual work. I was supposed to be his shadow COO, the guy who made him look good while he collected the credit and compensation. Not anymore. My last day, I handed over documentation on every major system, process, and client relationship. I spent an hour with Tyler trying to explain critical things he needed to know. He kept checking his phone and saying, yeah, I got it," to things he clearly didn't get. I shook hands with the shop floor guys who'd become friends over the years. They knew what was up. A few of them asked if I was hiring wherever I was going. I told them to keep in touch. Dad didn't even bother saying goodbye. Tyler gave me this smug look like I was making a mistake and he'd be fine without me. I walked out of that building for the last time with a weird mix of emotions. Relief, mostly. Some sadness. But mostly just this incredible lightness. Like I'd finally dropped a weight I'd been carrying since childhood. Started at Apex Manufacturing Solutions the following Monday. First week was orientation and training. Met the team, all experienced engineers and operations specialists who actually knew their shit. My direct boss, Sarah, had a PhD in industrial engineering and 20 years of experience. She treated me like a competent professional, not a free labor source. My first project was with a Tier 1 automotive supplier, having major quality control issues. Spent 3 months on-site diagnosing problems, redesigning their inspection protocols, and training their team. Client was thrilled. Renewed for a follow-up project immediately. My first quarter bonus alone was $18,000, more than a third of what Dad paid me annually. The work was challenging and rewarding. I was learning constantly, working with cutting-edge manufacturing technology, solving complex problems for clients who actually appreciated the solutions. And I was making real money for the first time in my adult life. Meanwhile, I'd hear things through industry contacts about Dad's company. Nothing direct, just whispers at conferences, comments from suppliers. Things weren't going great. Month 3 after I left, I ran into one of Dad's suppliers at a trade show. He mentioned they were having issues getting timely responses on orders. Lots of confusion about specifications. Projects running behind schedule. Month 5, a former colleague texted me. Said they'd lost 2 major clients. One because Tyler promised an impossible delivery timeline, and they missed it by 6 weeks. Another because quality issues had crept back in and they'd shipped defective parts. Month 6, I got a LinkedIn message from Janet, Dad's longtime office manager. She'd quit. Said the place was chaos. Tyler was making terrible decisions. Dad was rarely there anymore, and nobody knew what they were doing. 3 of the senior shop guys had left for competitors. Morale was in the toilet. I felt a little bad. Not for Dad or Tyler, they'd made their choices. But for the good people still working there who were suffering because of incompetent leadership. Month 8, Apex landed a major contract with one of Dad's biggest competitors, Precision Metalworks. They wanted to implement the exact same lean manufacturing and quality control systems I developed at Dad's company. The owner, Bill Stevens, specifically requested me for the project after hearing about my background. The money was incredible, $230,000 total compensation for the year. But more than that, I was helping Precision Metalworks become a more formidable competitor to Dad's company. We were implementing systems that would let them deliver faster, cheaper, and higher quality than Dad's shop could match in its current state. I'm not going to pretend I didn't take some satisfaction in that. 4 years of being treated like disposable labor, and now I was helping their competition eat their lunch. Month 10, things got interesting. I was on site at Precision Metalworks when my phone started blowing up. Dad, Tyler, even Mom, who'd barely spoken to me since I left, all calling and texting urgently. I ignored them. Whatever crisis they had wasn't my problem anymore. The voicemail started rolling in. Dad, we need to talk. It's about the company. Call me as soon as possible. Tyler. Dude, seriously, we're in trouble here. You need to come back. Mom, please call your father. He's very stressed. I finally listened to one of Dad's messages. His voice was strained, almost panicked. Son, we've got serious problems. Lost 3 major clients this quarter. We're hemorrhaging money. Tyler's trying, but he needs help. Your help. We can work something out. Please call me. I deleted it and went back to work. The calls kept coming. I blocked Dad and Tyler's numbers. Changed my LinkedIn settings so they couldn't see my activity. Made it clear I had zero interest in anything involving their company. But the messages found other routes. Dad started emailing me at my work address. Not sure how he got it. Long emails about legacy and family, and needing me. I set up a filter to send them straight to trash. Tyler apparently tried contacting me through Facebook, Instagram, even tried to DM me on Reddit somehow. All blocked. Mom tried the emotional manipulation route. Called me crying about how Dad was having chest pains from stress, and this was killing him. Said Tyler was working 18-hour days trying to keep things together. Begged me to at least talk to them. I texted back once. Dad chose Tyler. He chose to underpay me for 4 years while grooming Tyler to take over. This is the consequence of that choice. I'm not fixing their mistakes. Month 11, Janet messaged me again. Said the company was in real trouble. They'd burned through most of their cash reserves. Bank was getting nervous about their line of credit. They'd laid off 6 people. Rumors of bankruptcy were circulating. Tyler had apparently tried to implement some efficiency improvements that backfired spectacularly. Cut corners on quality control to save money, resulted in a massive recall, and destroyed their reputation with 2 major clients. He'd also pissed off their best suppliers by demanding payment terms they couldn't support, so now they were paying premium prices for materials. Everything I'd built, Tyler had systematically dismantled in less than a year. Part of me felt vindicated. They'd treated me like shit, assumed Tyler could just step into my role without any of my skills or knowledge, and now they were learning exactly how much I'd been holding that company together. But I also felt sad for the good people still there. The machinists who'd trained me when I first started, the shop foremen who'd always treated me with respect. They didn't deserve to lose their jobs because Dad and Tyler were incompetent. Still, not my circus anymore. Not my monkeys. Month 12, 1 year after I'd left, Bill at Precision Metalworks took me to lunch. Said he'd heard through the grapevine that my dad's company was struggling bad. Asked if I knew anything about a potential acquisition opportunity. I told him what I knew. Bill got this thoughtful look and said, "You know, if we acquired them, we'd need someone who knows that operation inside and out to integrate it properly. Someone who could salvage what's valuable and fix what's broken. Might be a VP level position. Probably $250,000 plus equity." The irony wasn't lost on me. I could potentially end up as VP of operations for the company that acquired Dad's business. Would essentially be Dad's boss. And Tyler's, if he even kept his job after an acquisition. I told Bill I'd think about it. That night, Dad called from a number I hadn't blocked. I answered without thinking. "Please don't hang up," he said immediately. His voice sounded broken. "I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I fucked up. But I'm begging you to hear me out." I stayed silent. The company's in trouble. Real trouble. We're probably going under in the next 6 months if things don't change. The bank is threatening to pull our line of credit. We've lost most of our major clients. Tyler tried his best, but he's not ready. He's not you. "No shit," I said. "I was wrong," Dad continued. "About everything. About Tyler. About you. About how I treated you all these years. You were the one who made this company successful, and I was too proud and stupid to see it. I'm sorry. 4 years too late." But I let him keep talking. "Come back," he said. "Please. Name your price. CEO position. Whatever you want. We need you." "What about Tyler?" I asked. Long pause. "He'd step aside. Or work under you. Whatever needs to happen. And my salary? Whatever you want. Seriously. I'll put it in writing. You'd be running everything." I thought about it for approximately 3 seconds. "No. Please. You had 4 years to pay me fairly. 4 years to treat me like a valued employee instead of cheap labor. You chose Tyler over me at every opportunity. You chose him when you bought him cars while I drove a beater. You chose him when you paid his way through a 6-year degree while I worked through school. You chose him when you made him CEO after 2 months while denying me raises for 4 years. This is the consequence of those choices. I'm sorry. You're not sorry you treated me badly. You're sorry it didn't work out the way you planned. You're sorry Tyler couldn't magically do the job you assumed he could do, because he's your favorite. You're sorry you're losing your company, but you're not actually sorry for how you treated me. That's not... I'm making $220,000 a year now. I love my job. I work with competent people who respect me. I have real opportunities for growth. Why the fuck would I give that up to come back and save your company? Because it's family. Family is what you chose with Tyler. I'm just the guy who worked there for 4 years. Good luck with your succession plan. I hung up. He called back immediately. I blocked the number. The next day, Tyler showed up at Precision Metalworks. Security called me because he was in the lobby demanding to see me. I went down. Tyler looked like shit. Lost weight, dark circles under his eyes, wearing a wrinkled suit that looked like he'd slept in it. You have to come back, he said. No greeting, no small talk, just desperate pleading. I don't have to do anything, I replied. We're going bankrupt. Dad's having chest pains. Mom's on anxiety meds. The company's falling apart. I can't... His voice cracked. I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing. Should have thought about that before you took a CEO job you weren't qualified for. I didn't ask for this. Dad just handed it to me. I thought you'd still be there to help me figure it out. That was the plan, wasn't it? You get the title and the money. I do the actual work. Everyone pretends you're competent. Except I left. And now you're discovering that running a company requires actual skills and knowledge. Please, Tyler said. His eyes were wet. I know we treated you badly. I know Dad fucked up. I fucked up. But you can't just let the company die. Think about the employees. All those people who'll lose their jobs. I think about them constantly, I said. That's why I connected Bill Stevens with a few of them. Precision Metalworks is hiring. The good people from Dad's shop will have jobs. They'll have better jobs, actually, at a company that isn't run by incompetent nepotism. Tyler's face went white. You're helping them poach our employees? I'm helping good people find good jobs before your company implodes and leaves them with nothing. You should thank me. You're destroying Dad's legacy. Everything he built... I built it, I interrupted. Dad started a company. I turned it into something successful. Then Dad handed it to you, and you destroyed it in less than a year. This isn't on me. What do you want? Tyler asked. Money? Equity? Name it. Just come back and fix this. I looked at my brother, the golden child who'd been handed everything our entire lives and squandered it all through sheer incompetence and entitlement. I want you to fail, I said. I want you to experience what it's like when hard work and talent don't matter because someone else gets opportunities you deserve. I want you to understand what I felt like every single day working for Dad while he treated you like royalty. I want you to fail, so maybe you'll learn that being someone's favorite doesn't make you competent. Tyler stood there, stunned. Get out, I said, and don't come back. Security escorted him out. I went back to work. Update 1. It's been 6 months since Tyler showed up at my office. Figured I'd update this because shit has gotten even more interesting. Dad's company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy 3 months ago. Tried reorganizing, but couldn't make it work. They're in Chapter 7 liquidation now. Company assets are being sold off to pay creditors. Bill Stevens at Precision Metalworks ended up acquiring their client contracts and some of their equipment for pennies on the dollar. He offered positions to 8 of Dad's former employees, all the good ones I'd worked with. 7 accepted. The 8th retired. Tyler's unemployment didn't last long. Dad got him a job at a buddy's distribution company, entry-level logistics coordinator, $38,000 a year. Tyler's posting vague LinkedIn updates about learning the fundamentals and paying his dues like he's fucking Rocky Balboa instead of a failed CEO getting charity employment. Dad and Mom had to sell their house, moved into a condo. Dad's officially retired now, not by choice. His reputation in the industry is trashed. Word got around about how badly Tyler fucked up the company, and Dad's name is attached to that failure. The real kicker? Dad tried to blame me publicly. Started telling people I'd sabotaged the company by leaving at a critical time and feeding information to competitors. Couple of people reached out to ask about it. I responded once, publicly, on LinkedIn. Posted a straightforward timeline. 4 years of below-market salary. Tyler's promotion to CEO after 2 months. My resignation. Tyler's disasters. Company bankruptcy. Let the facts speak for themselves. Dad's post got ratioed hard. Multiple people who'd worked with me commented about my contributions. A few clients even chimed in about how quality went downhill after I left. Dad deleted his post and hasn't said anything public since. Tyler tried to reach out again last month. Email this time since I'd blocked him everywhere else. Long sob story about how he never wanted the CEO job. Dad pushed it on him. He was set up to fail, blah, blah, blah. Ended with, I'm sorry for everything. You were right about all of it. I'm trying to be better. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I didn't respond. Not because I'm being petty. Okay, maybe a little because I'm being petty, but mainly because there's nothing to say. Tyler's apology means nothing. It doesn't undo 4 years of watching him coast through life on Dad's favoritism. It doesn't undo the year he spent destroying everything I built. It doesn't undo a lifetime of being treated like I was less important than him. Some bridges you burn, others you just watch collapse on their own. As for me, Apex promoted me to senior principal consultant, making $285,000 total comp now, managing a team of 5 consultants, working on projects with some of the biggest manufacturers in the country. Bought a house last month, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 2-car garage, paid 20% down, and my mortgage is less than what Tyler's making annually at his new career. Life's pretty good when you stop waiting for other people to appreciate you and just appreciate yourself. Final update, 2 years after I left Dad's company. Time for a final update because this story has officially run its course. Dad had a heart attack 8 months ago. Not related to stress, apparently. Just shitty genetics and a lifetime of burgers. He survived, but it was a wake-up call. Mom called me from the hospital. First time we'd spoken in over a year. Your father wants to see you, she said. Please, he's asking for you. I went. Not because I'd forgiven anything, but because the man almost died and I'm not a complete monster. Found him in a hospital bed looking 20 years older than when I'd last seen him. Mom and Tyler were there. Tyler looked uncomfortable. Mom looked relieved I'd shown up. Dad tried the deathbed reconciliation speech. Apologized for everything. Said he'd been a terrible father to me. Said he'd let his favoritism blind him. Said he was proud of what I'd accomplished despite, not because of him. Cried a bit. I sat there and took it in. Thought about all the years of bullshit. All the times he'd chosen Tyler over me. All the opportunities he'd denied me while handing Tyler everything. I appreciate you saying that, I finally said. I do. But it doesn't change anything. You made your choices. I made mine. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. I know, Dad said. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. And I'm proud of you. Should have said it years ago. Yeah, I said. You should have. That was pretty much it. Dad recovered. He and Mom are doing the retirement thing in their condo. Dad tried reaching out a few more times, but eventually stopped when I made it clear I wasn't interested in rebuilding a relationship. Tyler and I ran into each other at an industry conference 6 months ago. He's still working that logistics job. Apparently doing okay at it. He walked up, awkward as hell, and said, Hey, I said back. Long pause. I really am sorry, he said. For everything. The way we treated you. The company. All of it. I know, I said. Is there any chance? No, he nodded. Yeah, I figured. For what it's worth, I tell people the truth now. About how I fucked up the company. About how you were the one who built it. I don't make excuses anymore. Good for you, I said. And I meant it, kind of. Not in a warm, fuzzy way, but in a basic human decency should be the minimum way. We didn't exchange numbers. Didn't make plans to grab coffee or catch up. Just nodded at each other and went our separate ways. I'm 33 now. Senior principal consultant at Apex. Making $340,000. Engaged to Emma, a structural engineer I met through work. She's brilliant and driven and treats me like an equal partner. We're planning a wedding for next spring. Mom asked if Dad and Tyler were invited. I said Mom was welcome. Dad and Tyler weren't. She tried the family obligation argument. I shut it down. They had a million chances to treat me like family. They chose not to. This is my wedding. Emma's family. My actual family. The people who've supported me and believed in me. Dad and Tyler don't make that list. Mom didn't push it. I think she knew better. That's where things stand. Dad's company is fully liquidated. Tyler's figuring out how to be a functional adult for the first time in his life. Dad's living with his regrets. Mom's caught in the middle but respecting my boundaries. And me? I'm building a life with someone who values me. Doing work I'm passionate about. Making money that reflects my actual worth. Living in a house I bought with money I earned. Surrounded by people who respect me. No golden child favoritism. No toxic family dynamics. No more waiting for approval that'll never come. Just peace. Finally. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Story 4. My mom said we can't be in 2 places at once. When I was in ICU and chose my bro's wedding, They spent thousands on his honeymoon instead of my hospital bills. Everyone cut them off, and their life is falling apart fast. Hey Reddit! My parents always had a favorite kid, and it sure wasn't me. I broke my spine 2 days before my brother's wedding, got left in the hospital alone, then blamed for ruining everything. They lied to the family, but the truth came out. Let me start from the top. My name's Elliot, I'm 26, and this whole mess started 2 days before my brother's wedding. Matthias is the golden child of the family. He's 2 years older, straight A's growing up, football team captain, now working some corporate job that my parents brag about like he invented the internet or something. Me? I was the kid who blended into the wallpaper. Did fine in school, worked through college, but no one ever introduced me as their pride and joy. And to be fair, I didn't really care. Matthias was the star, and I was used to it. It only got weird when my family made everything about him, even when it had nothing to do with him, like this wedding. My mom had been planning it like it was the royal wedding part 2. Dad basically turned into her assistant. And me? I was supposed to be the best man. But I learned later that one of Matthias's college friends stepped in as best man. Money was tight for me at the time. Student loans, rent, you name it. So when a buddy told me about this temporary construction gig that paid decent, I jumped on it. My plan was simple. Work 2 weeks, make enough to cover the tux rental, wedding gift, and maybe have some leftover for bills. Nothing crazy, just a short job to help out a bit. The site was on the edge of town, small commercial project, nothing that looked sketchy from the outside. A few metal frames, some scaffolding, piles of drywall stacked around. I wasn't new to labor jobs. I'd done warehouse work before. But this was my first time on a site with heights involved. The foreman did a safety talk, handed out helmets, pointed at the harnesses, told us to stay clipped in. Standard stuff. It was hot that day. The kind of heat where metal burns your hands if you forget your gloves for 2 seconds. We were working on the second level of scaffolding, bolting some metal sheets into place. I remember the smell of the dust and the sharp metallic sound every time someone dropped a wrench on the frame. Then it happened. I heard this loud ping, like metal snapping. The plank under my feet jerked hard, then dropped on one side. My stomach flipped before my brain caught up. I grabbed at the rail, but it swung loose with me. Whole thing collapsed like someone yanked the rug out. I don't remember the fall clearly, just flashes. Sky, ground. Someone yelling my name. Then pain slammed through my back like I'd landed on a bed of bricks. Next thing I know, there's chaos. Hard hats running around. Someone shouting for an ambulance. My legs felt wrong. Not like asleep wrong. Just wrong. Breathing hurt. I kept trying to shift to see my legs, but they told me to stay still. At the hospital, everything blurred together. Bright lights, people in scrubs moving fast, someone asking if I had family to call. I mumbled my parents' number. A nurse wrote it down and disappeared. The doctor leaned over me at one point and said, "You've got spinal fractures and a broken femur. We need to operate now." I nodded because what else do you say? That's when my best friend Jackson showed up. He looked pale as hell, kept asking the staff if I was going to be okay. They handed him a clipboard because my parents weren't there yet. It was admission and emergency contact paperwork, so he filled it out. I drifted in and out while they wheeled me somewhere. Right before I went under, I heard one of the nurses on the phone saying, "Yes, ma'am, he's about to go into surgery." "Yes, I understand, but..." Then she hung up and muttered, "She said they can't make it. Rehearsal dinner tonight." I thought I misheard. I had to have misheard. When I woke up after surgery, I was in the ICU, monitors chirping, a blood pressure cuff biting my arm. Jackson was in the chair by the bed, looking wrecked. He told me they put rods in my leg, screws in my spine, and that my parents knew but were still at the rehearsal. He'd called them himself. "They said they'll come tomorrow," he muttered, shaking his head. I didn't even know what to say. The pain meds made everything foggy, but I remember feeling this weird mix of anger and disbelief. Like, yeah, it was Matthias's big weekend, but I was in a hospital bed full of metal rods. Tomorrow? Really? The nurses came in and out, checking vitals, telling me not to move too much. At some point, a guy from the site dropped by to see how I was doing. He said the scaffolding supplier was sending reps to check the wreckage, that OSHA might get involved. I barely processed it. I never heard anything after that. If there was an investigation, it happened without me. When I woke up, it felt like my spine had been replaced with fire. The lights above me were harsh. The room smelled like antiseptic, and for a second, I couldn't even tell if it was day or night. My throat was dry and my voice cracked when I tried to speak. "Hey, easy," Jackson said from the chair next to my bed. He looked rough, like he hadn't slept. You've been out for hours. Surgery went okay, but it was bad, Elliot. Real bad. I asked what time it was. He told me it was noon. Wedding rehearsal had been last night. The actual wedding was tomorrow. Did my parents come? I asked. He hesitated. No, they said they're busy. Busy, I repeated. Yeah, rehearsal dinner, he muttered, rubbing his eyes. I called them this morning. They said they'll come by after the wedding's over. I didn't answer right away, because I honestly didn't know what to say. My back throbbed like someone had stuck a car jack under my ribs. A nurse came in with a clipboard, checked the monitors, then asked if I wanted to try sitting up. I tried. My body protested immediately. My ribs felt like they were caving in, my leg felt wrong, and my head spun so hard I almost blacked out. The nurse told me to take deep breaths, like that was going to fix anything. After she left, Jackson told me he tried calling Matthias too. Straight to voicemail. No callback. A little later, Mom texted me that she'd already told him I was in the ICU, and they'd come after the wedding. The doctor showed up mid-afternoon. He explained the damage like he was reading off a grocery list. Broken femur, 3 spinal fractures, 2 cracked ribs, and a long recovery ahead. Physical therapy. Months of it. Maybe a year before things felt close to normal. He said it like normal was even still an option. And through all this, my family was out having wine and giving speeches like nothing had happened. Later, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. Jackson put it on speaker. Hi, Elliot, she said, way too cheerful. We can't be in 2 places at once, you know? The wedding's tomorrow, so much to do. We'll check in after things settle. Hope you're resting. That was it. Like she was leaving a note about running late for dinner, not her son being in the ICU. I stared at the phone. Jackson swore under his breath. An hour later, my cousin texted me, Hey, are you coming to the reception tomorrow? I wrote back, Can't. In the hospital. Surgery yesterday. She answered, Wait, what? Since when? I told her it was 2 days ago. She didn't text back after that. The next morning, wedding day, I was still in the hospital bed, barely able to move. Jackson left around noon to shower and grab food. While he was gone, I watched other patients get visitors. Husbands, wives, kids, people bringing flowers, cards, balloons. No one from my family came for me. Around 3 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. Mom again, same tone. Hey, honey, just wanted to say we're at the wedding now. It's beautiful. You'd love it. Big day today. We'll swing by when things quiet down. Hope you're feeling better. She said it like I was homesick with a cold, not stuck in a hospital bed with metal rods in my spine. I listened twice, saved it, then put the phone down. From Facebook posts, I got the highlights. Matthias in his tux, his bride glowing, my parents smiling like they were hosting a royal event. Caption after caption about family first and best day ever. I stopped scrolling after 10 minutes. That evening, Jackson came back with takeout. He tried talking about sports, random memes, whatever he could think of to fill the silence. I picked at my food, mostly pushing it around. You want me to call them again? He asked finally. No point, I said. They made their choice. That night, I couldn't sleep. Machines beeped. Someone down the hall kept coughing. Nurses laughed about something at the desk. By the time the wedding weekend ended, I had a couple of messages, 0 visits, and a very clear picture of where I stood in my family's list of priorities. The Monday after, a nurse asked if my parents were coming soon to help plan my discharge. I told her not to hold her breath, because at that point, I already knew. The hospital days blurred together after the wedding weekend. Every morning, some doctor or nurse came in with a clipboard, asking if I had family who could take me in once I was released. I kept giving the same answer. I'll figure it out. Meanwhile, Jackson's parents had already offered to let me stay at their place while I recovered. They had a spare room, no stairs, and the kind of people who stocked soup and crackers like it was their job. They didn't ask for anything in return. Just told me to focus on healing. Inpatient PT started in week 2. The first time they tried getting me upright with a walker, I nearly collapsed. My left leg couldn't take my weight, and my back screamed like it was about to snap again. The therapist kept saying things like, "You're making progress," even though all I managed was standing for 30 seconds before sweating like I ran a marathon. No calls from my parents, no visits. Matthias didn't text either. Not once. The only people showing up were Jackson, his girlfriend Riley sometimes, and 2 of my college friends who brought bad vending machine coffee and tried to keep things light. We played dumb mobile games on my phone between PT sessions. They made the time pass. My parents finally showed up in week 3. I didn't even recognize them at first. My mom had on this bright floral dress like she came from some garden party. My dad carried grocery store flowers wrapped in crinkly plastic. Elliot, Mom said like she was announcing me to someone. I was propped up in bed, wearing the brace they strapped around my torso to keep my spine from moving too much. My leg had metal rods, fresh scars running down the side. You look okay, Dad said finally. I didn't answer right away. They put the flowers on the little table by my bed. My mom sat, smoothed her dress, then said, "You know, this whole thing really took the focus off Matthias's wedding." I thought I misheard. "Excuse me?" I said. She sighed like I was being difficult. "People were confused, Elliot. Some relatives asked why you weren't there. It made things awkward. You could have told people you were fine so they didn't worry." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. It never came. Dad cleared his throat. "Your brother felt like the accident overshadowed the day a little. Obviously, we're glad you're okay, but it was hard for him too." I looked down at my brace because looking at them made me feel like I was losing my mind. "Hard for him?" I repeated. "I fell 3 stories and broke my spine. Sorry that ruined the party." Neither of them said anything. When they left, they told me to keep them updated. Like I was sending postcards from vacation instead of sitting in a hospital bed, learning to walk again. That night, Jackson came by with his mom. She brought homemade soup that didn't taste like cardboard. I told them about the visit. Jackson swore under his breath again. His mom shook her head, muttering something about people having messed up priorities. Over the next week, the physical therapy got harder. Longer sessions, less help from the staff, so I had to rely on my arms and the walker more. Every step felt like someone was jamming a knife into my lower back, but I kept doing it. Matthias finally called once, not to ask how I was doing. Number. He called to say he didn't want drama, and hoped I understood why things happened the way they did. I told him I broke my spine, not a piñata. He said I was being intense. When I was finally cleared to leave the hospital, my parents didn't offer to take me in. Didn't even ask. Jackson's parents showed up with their SUV, loaded my bag, and drove me to their place like it was the most normal thing in the world. They set me up in their guest room with a recliner, a pile of pillows, and the Wi-Fi password taped to the wall. My mom texted later that night, "Glad you're out. Keep us posted." I stared at it for a long time before putting the phone face down, because at that point, there wasn't anything left to say. The first week at Jackson's parents' place was slow. Physical therapy 3 times a week. Short walks from the bedroom to the living room with a cane. A list of exercises taped to the wall next to the recliner. Jackson's mom cooked like she was training for a competition, and his dad kept making bad jokes to keep things from feeling heavy. Meanwhile, I started getting bills from the hospital. The insurance covered some of it, but there were still deductibles, follow-up appointments, medication, and therapy sessions stacking up. I called my parents to talk about it because I thought, maybe, just maybe, they'd help. They didn't answer the first few times. When my mom finally picked up, I explained the situation, listed the costs, told her it was tight since I couldn't work yet. She was quiet for a second, then said, "We can't right now. We already gave Matthias some money for the honeymoon, and we still need to help them with the house fund." I thought I misheard. "The honeymoon?" "Well, yes," she said. "They just got married. They need support starting their life. You're an adult, Elliot. We can't fund everything." I was sitting there with a brace on my back, metal rods in my leg, pain meds lined up on the table like candy, and they couldn't help because they were paying for Matthias to sit on a beach drinking overpriced smoothies. I told her never mind and hung up. A few days later, they came to visit for the first time since I left the hospital. Walked right into Jackson's parents' living room like they owned the place. My mom started with, "Oh, this is cozy," like we were giving them a tour of an Airbnb instead of me recovering in someone else's house because my own parents couldn't be bothered. Matthias wasn't with them. He was posting honeymoon pictures online. Sunset dinners, boat rides, the works. My dad asked how physical therapy was going. I said fine. He nodded like he was checking a box. Then my mom said, "We've been hearing things from some relatives. They think we ignored you during the wedding." We told them that wasn't true, of course. I looked at her. It was true. It was. She frowned like I'd just insulted her. "Elliot, it was Matthias's wedding. People don't understand how much stress we were under. We couldn't be everywhere at once. You didn't show up at all," I said flatly. Dad shifted in his seat. "You're making this sound worse than it was." Dad said I was making it sound worse than it was, that I should have played it down for the relatives. I pointed at the brace. "Yeah, I was doing great. They didn't like my tone. Mom said I was being dramatic, that accidents happen, but weddings are once in a lifetime." I asked her if she thought spines healed in a week. She changed the subject. After they left, Jackson walked in from the kitchen with a glass of water and asked how it went. I told him they wanted me to stop making them look bad. Unbelievable, he muttered. I started getting messages from cousins after that. Apparently, my parents were telling everyone I was staying with friends because I needed space after the accident, not because they basically abandoned me in the hospital. One aunt called and asked why I didn't come to the wedding at all. I told her I was in surgery while they were cutting the cake. She went silent, then said my parents told a completely different story. Of course they did. Matthias finally called after he got back from the honeymoon. No, how are you? No, sorry about the hospital. He started with, Mom said you've been telling people we ignored you. That's not fair. Not fair? I said. You knew I was in the ICU and didn't even text. I didn't want drama at the wedding, he said like he was the victim. I broke my spine, Matthias. Sorry if that clashed with your playlist. He told me I was bitter. I told him he was selfish. That was our whole conversation. By the end of that month, collections were calling about one of the surgery bills. Because the hospital, the surgeon, and anesthesia all billed separately. My parents still didn't offer to help. They did, however, post pictures from a family barbecue I wasn't invited to. Big smiles, matching shirts, captions about family means everything. I stopped checking their pages after that. What they didn't realize was some of the relatives were starting to ask questions on their own. And I wasn't lying to anyone. I just told the truth. And people didn't like what they heard. The word traveled fast once my cousins started asking questions. I didn't go around starting conversations about it, but when someone called and asked where I'd been the past few months, I told them straight. The accident, the hospital, the wedding, the whole thing. No exaggerations, no yelling, just facts. Some of them didn't believe me at first. My parents had been spinning the story that I skipped the wedding because I was working too much and then needed space after some argument that never even happened. The moment I told my side, you could hear the shock in their voices. But I didn't have time to worry about what the extended family thought. The bills were stacking up. One afternoon, sitting at the kitchen table in Jackson's parents' house, I opened another envelope marked urgent. Final notice, I read out loud, holding it up for Jackson. He was leaning against the counter, arms crossed. That the surgery bill? Yeah, I said. Insurance covered most, but there's still $5,000 left on this one alone. Physical therapy's another 2. Meds keep adding up too. I laughed without humor. Guess Mom and Dad are busy paying for Matthias's infinity pool or whatever. Jackson frowned. They're really not helping? At all. They said they already gave Matthias money for the honeymoon and house fund, I said, sliding the paper across the table. So no. Apparently me learning to walk again isn't in the budget. He looked at the bill, then at me. Don't stress it right now. Kind of hard not to, I said. He didn't answer, just picked up the envelope and walked out of the room. That night, Jackson's parents sat down with me after dinner. His dad had the bill in his hand. We're gonna cover this, he said simply. I froze. No, I can't. You can, his mom interrupted, sliding a check across the table. It's a loan. When you're back on your feet, you pay us back. Until then, focus on getting better. I didn't even know what to say. These weren't people swimming in money. They just cared enough to help when my own family didn't. You sure about this? I asked finally. His dad shrugged. It's what family does. That hit harder than I expected. Over the next few weeks, the calls from collections stopped. The hospital confirmed the balance was paid. Jackson's parents never brought it up again. Meanwhile, Jackson became my unofficial physical therapist when the real ones weren't around. He drove me to appointments, sat in the waiting room scrolling on his phone, then walked me back to the car like I was 80 years old. At home, he made me do the boring exercises the PT gave me. Leg lifts, stretches, balancing stuff. If I complained, he threw a pillow at me and told me to shut up. We watched a lot of late-night TV those weeks. Some nights we didn't talk much. Others, we ended up laughing about dumb high school memories until my ribs hurt. It wasn't just the help with the bills. It was the way his family made space for me like it wasn't a favor. Like I belonged there. Matthias texted once during this time. Heard you got the hospital paid off. Guess it wasn't that bad after all. I didn't answer. Because how do you even respond to something like that? As my walking improved, I started doing remote work again. Nothing crazy. Data entry, freelance writing gigs, whatever I could do from the recliner with my laptop propped on pillows. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough to cover my phone bill, meds, and some groceries, so I wasn't draining Jackson's parents completely. I set up a payment plan with them for the hospital loan even though they told me not to rush. His mom said, "We're not worried about it, Elliot." But I was. I didn't want to be someone's permanent charity case. Meanwhile, the family drama kept brewing in the background. One cousin messaged me saying my mom told everyone I refused visitors in the hospital because I was embarrassed about the accident. I told him the truth. Nobody showed up until 3 weeks later. And when they did, they complained about the wedding. Next thing I knew, my aunt called demanding to know why my parents lied. I told her to ask them. One Saturday, Jackson and I were sitting on the porch when he said, "You realize your parents are digging their own grave here, right? They keep lying, people keep finding out. It's on them." I nodded. "Yeah, but they'll blame me when everyone stops taking their side." "Let them," he said. "People see what's real eventually." By the end of that month, I was taking short indoor walks without the cane. Still slow and stiff, but moving. Jackson filmed it on his phone, cheering like I just won a marathon. I sent the video to my parents. No response. By the time summer rolled around, the truth had legs of its own. I didn't push it. I didn't post anything online or start any arguments. But every time someone called or messaged asking where I'd been the last few family events, I told them the same thing. The accident happened 2 days before the wedding. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. No one showed up until after it was over. And when they did, they blamed me for making it awkward. That was it. No insults. No drama. Just the facts. And people didn't like what they heard. My cousin Viola was the first to call my parents out. She told me later she asked my mom why nobody knew about the accident. Apparently, my mom said I didn't want anyone to fuss and that I asked for privacy. Viola called BS on the spot. She'd seen the hospital bracelets when she visited me. She knew I couldn't even walk. After that, the calls started piling up. Aunts, uncles, even some family friends. They wanted to hear my side, so I gave it to them. Straightforward. No anger in my voice. The more people heard, the more cracks started showing in my parents' story. There was this annual family barbecue that July. Big deal for my parents. They hosted, loved being the center of attention. Pictures on Facebook, long captions about family traditions. But this year, half the usual crowd didn't show. I wasn't invited, obviously, but Viola sent me a photo someone posted. My parents sitting at a picnic table with empty chairs around them. Matthias there too, looking annoyed. Later that night, he texted me, "You're turning people against us. You need to stop." I stared at the message for a while before replying, "I just answered questions. Not my fault the truth doesn't make you look good." He didn't respond after that. A week later, Matthias's wife Jenny reached out. Said she wanted to meet for coffee. She showed up looking tired, like someone who hadn't slept enough lately. After some small talk, she finally said, "Matthias told me about the accident months later. He made it sound like you were fine the whole time." I told her what really happened. The hospital, the voicemail about the wedding being more important, the bills Jackson's family covered because my own parents refused. Jenny just stared at her cup, shaking her head. "I wish I'd known," she said finally. "I would have come to see you. I thought you didn't want visitors." "That's what they told people," I said. She looked angry, but not at me. One afternoon, my parents came to Jackson's house unannounced. Jackson's dad answered the door while I was doing my PT exercises in the living room. "We need to talk to Elliot," my mom said, like it was urgent. I told them we could meet at the coffee shop down the street instead. No way was I letting them start something in front of Jackson's parents after everything they'd done for me. We met the next day. They sat across from me, both looking serious. My dad started, "You've been telling people things that make us look bad." I leaned back in my chair. I told them what happened. "That's all." Mom jumped in. "You're twisting it, making it sound like we abandoned you." "You did abandon me," I said. Calm, even voice, no yelling. "One surgery, I couldn't walk, and you didn't show up because it might ruin the wedding. They didn't like that." My dad said I was ungrateful. My mom said family shouldn't air private matters. "Then maybe you should have acted like family in the first place," I said. Conversation over. Over the next month, things got quiet. My parents stopped calling. Matthias didn't text. But the relatives kept reaching out. Viola told me several of them confronted my parents about the lies. A few even told Matthias to his face that he should have been at the hospital instead of smiling for photos. One uncle apparently canceled on my parents for Thanksgiving, saying he didn't feel right celebrating family with people who don't act like family. I didn't ask for any of this. It just happened. One evening, sitting on the porch with Jackson, I told him about the barbecue, the coffee meeting with Jenny, the relatives pulling away. He nodded slowly. "That's what happens when you keep lying. Eventually, people notice the smoke." I told him I didn't even want revenge. I just wanted to be left alone. "Doesn't matter," he said. "They built this mess. Now they get to live in it." Late August, Matthias finally texted, "Can we talk?" We met at a diner off the highway. He walked in wearing a polo shirt like he came straight from golf or something. not looking at me until he sat down. No hello, no, how are you? You happy now? He started, loud enough that the waitress looked over. Family won't stop calling me. People skipped the barbecue. You made us look like monsters. I stayed calm. I didn't make you look like anything. I told them what happened. He leaned forward, voice sharp. No, you spun it so everyone thinks we abandoned you. Like we didn't have a wedding to run, like we weren't under pressure too. You did abandon me, I said. The surgery. I see you alone. He shook his head like I was the unreasonable one. You always do this. Play the victim. Like the whole world's against you. You could have told people you were fine, but no. You let them think we're heartless. I laughed once. You want me to send a thank you card for ignoring me? Maybe frame the voicemail where Mom said the wedding was more important? His face tightened. You know what your problem is? You can't stand that the spotlight wasn't on you. It killed you that my wedding mattered more than your accident. That actually made me blink. You think I fell off scaffolding for attention? Seriously? He didn't back down. Wouldn't be the first time you made things harder for everyone else. I stared at him. I was fighting to walk again while you were on a beach drinking cocktails. Jackson's parents paid my hospital bills because our own parents wouldn't. And you're mad because people finally saw through the perfect little image you built? That's what this is about? He leaned back, smirking like he won something. People wouldn't even know if you kept your mouth shut. Right, I said. Because the truth only counts if it makes you look good. Families stick together, he snapped. Families show up, I shot back. Families don't skip the hospital because it clashes with the cake-cutting schedule. His voice rose. You could have waited. You didn't have to tell everyone. I laughed again, this time shaking my head. Sorry my accident wasn't convenient for you, Matthias. Next time I'll check your calendar before I break my spine. He slammed his hand on the table, silverware rattling. You ruined everything. The wedding, the family events, Mom and Dad's reputation. You ruined it, I said, cutting him off. All I did was stop covering for you. He opened his mouth, ready to fire back, but nothing came out. For a second, he just sat there, jaw tight, like it finally hit him. There was no spin left to hide behind. I dropped some cash on the table for my coffee and stood up. You wanted the crown, Matthias. Congrats. But don't get mad at me because it's falling apart now. I left him sitting there, red-faced in the middle of the diner, people staring from nearby tables. In early December, Jenny texted me. We separated for a bit, she wrote. Matthias is staying at his friend's place. I didn't ask for details. None of my business. But later, Viola said Jenny told a few people she was tired of Matthias playing the victim, tired of him blaming everyone else when the truth caught up. I believed it. That diner conversation showed me all I needed to know about my brother's talent for dodging responsibility. Meanwhile, my life moved on. I kept working remote gigs while finishing physical therapy. By February, I was fully off the cane outdoors. Still stiff sometimes, but nothing like before. Jackson's parents refused every time I tried to start paying them back for the hospital loan. You need time, his dad said. Money can wait. But I set the money aside anyway. Month after month, building it up until I could hand them the full amount. When I finally gave them the check in March, his mom hugged me like I'd just come home from war. They didn't make me feel like charity. They made me feel like family. Spring came, and with it came more distance between me and my parents. They tried calling a few times, mostly to talk about how the family felt divided lately. My dad said it like some mysterious outside force had caused it, not their own choices. I told him I wasn't interested in pretending things were fine. If they wanted a relationship, it had to start with owning up to what happened. He said I was being dramatic. I said then we had nothing to talk about. By May, Matthias reached out again, this time in person. He showed up at the park where I was walking laps for exercise. No hello, no small talk. Just straight into it. You told people about Jenny leaving? He snapped. I raised an eyebrow. No, Viola mentioned it. Guess word got around. You enjoy this, don't you? His voice was bitter. Everyone treating me like the bad guy while you sit back looking innocent? I kept my hands in my jacket pockets. You made yourself the bad guy, Matthias. I didn't tell you to ignore me in the hospital. I didn't tell you to lie to the family. That was all you. He laughed without humor. You think you're so perfect now? Because people feel sorry for you? Nobody feels sorry for me, I said evenly. They just finally see you for who you are. He didn't like that. One accident, and you act like you're the hero of the story. I looked at him for a long second. No hero here. Just someone who stopped covering for you. For once, he didn't have a comeback. He stood there, jaw tight, then turned and walked off without another word. 2 weeks later, Jenny filed for divorce. Viola told me, Apparently, Jenny said she was tired of his selfishness, tired of the Golden Boy Act, tired of carrying the marriage while he played victim about the family drama he caused. Matthias moved back in with my parents after that. The last time I saw them all together was at a cousin's birthday in the next July. I showed up because Viola invited me directly. My parents tried small talk, asking about work, about therapy, about whether I was feeling better these days. I gave short answers and kept eating my cake. Matthias didn't say anything to me at all, just sat there looking like someone who'd watched his kingdom crumble one brick at a time. I left early, walking out into the warm evening air. My legs felt steady. My back didn't ache as much anymore. On the way home, I passed a construction site. New scaffolding, bright warning signs, workers in harnesses double-checking bolts before climbing. I stopped for a second, watching them work. Then I kept walking, because that part of my life was over. The accident, the lies, the drama, none of it was mine to carry anymore. I had my health back. I had people who showed up when it mattered. The rest could fall apart without me. And it did. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Story 5. This story is titled, I told my fiancé I was cut out of the family business, but it was a plan to expose her gold digger mask. Hi everyone. Before we dive in, a quick favor. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, supports the channel, and makes sure you never miss out on amazing videos. Alright, let's get started. Hi Reddit, I never thought I'd be the guy posting here, but after everything that's gone down, I feel like this story needs to be shared. It's about realizing that not everyone you let into your life deserves to stay. I'll start by saying I've always been a guy who takes care of the people I care about. My dad taught me that. He built a real estate development company from the ground up, turning it into something massive. But he also made sure my brother Luke and I earned our way. Summers on job sites, late nights learning the business. It wasn't handed to us on a silver platter. So when I started making good money, I didn't mind spending it on the woman I loved. Enter Monica, my ex-fiancée now. From the moment I met her, she had this energy about her. Confident, stylish, the kind of woman who turns heads without even trying. We clicked right away, and I thought I'd found the one. I'm not going to lie. I liked spoiling her. If she mentioned wanting something, I'd make it happen. A designer bag? Done. Weekend getaways? Sure. Dinner at the nicest places in town? I didn't even blink. It wasn't about showing off or keeping her happy to keep her around. I just believed she deserved the best. At the time, I thought that's what love was. Giving. And to her credit, Monica played the part of the perfect fiancé. She'd light up whenever I surprised her with something, call me her provider, and tell her friends how lucky she was. And yeah, I ate it up. But everything changed when my dad passed away a few months ago. Losing him wasn't just a personal blow. It was like losing the foundation of everything I'd built my life on. He wasn't just my father. He was my mentor, the guy who showed me how to navigate the world. I was grieving, trying to figure out what life looked like without him. And at the same time, I had to step up in the business alongside Luke. It was a lot. Monica, though? She didn't seem to notice or care how much I was struggling. At first, I thought it was just her way of giving me space. She wasn't exactly the nurturing type, but I figured everyone processes loss differently. Except it wasn't just that she wasn't supportive, it was the shift in her focus. Barely 2 weeks after the funeral, she started asking questions about the company. And not the casual, how's work going? Kind of questions. No, these were pointed, detailed, business-focused questions. When do you officially take over? Who's on the board now? Do you have full control? Is Luke going to try to take a bigger piece of the company? At first, I answered because I didn't think much of it. But the more she asked, the more it felt wrong. She didn't ask how I was holding up or if I needed anything. She didn't even mention my dad unless it was in the context of the business. All she seemed to care about was what came next. And not for us, but for her. The questions weren't just weird. They were relentless. I'd come home after a long day, exhausted from balancing work and grief, and she'd pounce. How much equity do you have now? Do you have final say on contracts? Or does that go through Luke? What about expansion? Are you leading that now? It was like she'd been waiting for this moment. And now that it was here, she wasn't wasting any time. I started noticing other things too. The way she talked about the business, like it was her golden ticket. The way she'd casually mention projects to our friends, dropping hints about how we were growing the company. And don't even get me started on the way she started throwing Luke's name into conversations. Luke's so business savvy, she'd say. You two must make such a great team. At first, I chalked it up to pride. her wanting to show off my success. But the more I paid attention, the more it felt calculated. She started pushing to attend meetings she had no reason to be at, claiming she wanted to learn more about the business. She even suggested hosting a dinner for the board members, saying it would help her build relationships. It was also transparent. The thing is, Monica had always loved the perks of my lifestyle. But this was different. It wasn't about enjoying the benefits of being with me. It was about positioning herself. She wasn't acting like a fiancé. She was acting like someone vying for a spot on the company's payroll. I didn't say anything at first because I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe this was just her way of coping. Maybe she thought she was helping by being involved. But deep down, I knew better. One night, as we sat on the couch, she casually dropped a line that stopped me cold. "So, if something happened and you weren't running the company, what would you do?" The question hit me like a brick. Not because it was offensive, on the surface it wasn't, but because it revealed how she saw me. Not as Max, the man she supposedly loved, but as Max, the guy tied to a multi-million-dollar company. I couldn't let it go. It wasn't just the words, it was the way she said it, like she was testing the waters. It stayed with me, gnawing at the back of my mind. Was I being paranoid? Or was there something deeper going on? I started replaying every interaction we'd had since Dad passed. Things I'd brushed off before suddenly felt different. She wasn't acting like someone who loved me and wanted to help me through a tough time. Instead, it felt like she was sizing me up, like she was calculating her next move. It didn't help that she'd become almost obsessed with the company. She'd always known what I did for a living, but she'd never cared about the details before. Now, it was all she wanted to talk about. Whenever we were together, the conversation somehow ended up circling back to work. My role, Luke's role, the board, the projects. One night, we were sitting in the living room, and she was scrolling through her phone. Out of nowhere, she said, "You know, I was reading this article about succession planning. It said family businesses can get really messy if roles aren't clearly defined. Do you and Luke ever fight about who's in charge?" I glanced at her, trying to read her expression, but she didn't even look up from her phone. "Not really," I said, keeping my tone casual. "We both know our strengths, and we work together. It's not a competition." She nodded, like that answer satisfied her, but I could see the gears turning. It wasn't the first time she'd brought up Luke. Lately, it seemed like she was more interested in his role in the company than in anything I was doing. At first, I thought she was just being polite. Luke and I had always been close, so it made sense that she'd want to get along with him. But now, it felt like something else entirely. The turning point came a few days later. I was in my home office trying to catch up on some paperwork when Monica came in holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed me one with a smile and perched herself on the edge of the desk. "You've been working so hard lately," she said, her tone sweet but oddly deliberate. "Do you ever feel like you're carrying all the weight on your shoulders?" I shrugged. "It comes with the territory." She leaned in a little closer. "But doesn't it bother you that Luke gets to share the load without dealing with the same pressure? I mean, you're the face of the company now. He's just assisting, right?" That hit a nerve. Not because she was right. Luke and I had always been equals in the business, but because it felt like she was trying to plant a seed of doubt. "Luke's not just assisting," I said, a little sharper than I intended. "We're a team. Always have been." She pulled back, looking surprised, but she didn't drop it. "I just think you deserve more credit, that's all. You're the one running the show now." I didn't respond, but the whole conversation left a bad taste in my mouth. It wasn't like Monica to talk about Luke that way. If anything, she'd always been polite and respectful toward him. But now, it felt like she was trying to drive a wedge between us. Or maybe she was testing how much control I really had. After that, I couldn't stop noticing the little things she did. When we went to events, she'd position herself near the power players, laughing at their jokes and slipping into their conversations like she belonged there. At home, she'd casually ask me about deals and contracts. And whenever Luke came up, she'd find a way to steer the conversation back to his role in the company. The worst part was, I couldn't talk to anyone about it. Luke would have called her out immediately, and I wasn't ready to go there yet. My friends didn't know her well enough to see the change, and I wasn't about to burden my mom while she was still grieving. So I kept it to myself, turning the pieces over in my head and trying to make sense of it all. Was I imagining things? Or was Monica showing me who she really was? One night, I decided to test her. Nothing big, just a casual comment to see how she'd react. We were having dinner, and I mentioned that a new project was running over budget. "It's going to be a headache," I said, spearing a piece of steak with my fork. "The board's not happy, and Luke's been up to his ears in it." Her eyes lit up, and she leaned forward. Oh? What's the project? It's just a residential development, I said, keeping my tone light. But it's tied to a lot of other deals, so the pressure's on. She nodded, clearly trying to act nonchalant. Sounds stressful. Are you the one who has to handle all that? Not really, I said. Luke's taking the lead on this one. He's better at the big picture stuff. Her face didn't change, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. She didn't press the issue, but the fact that she'd latched onto the project so quickly confirmed what I'd already suspected. She wasn't interested in me. She was interested in what I could give her. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out my next move. I didn't have concrete proof yet, but my gut was screaming that something wasn't right. The hardest part was reconciling the Monica I'd fallen for with the person she was becoming. When we first met, she'd been so warm, so genuine, or at least I'd thought she was. Now, it felt like everything she did was calculated, like she was playing a game I didn't even know I'd entered, but I wasn't about to let her win. If Monica thought she could manipulate me into giving her what she wanted, she was in for a rude awakening. I'd spent my whole life watching my dad navigate tough situations, and if there was one thing he taught me, it was how to spot a snake in the grass. I decided then and there that I wasn't going to sit back and let her control the narrative. If she was playing a game, I was going to play it better. By the time I decided to test Monica, I wasn't questioning if her intentions were bad. I was questioning how far she'd go. Every little thing she did seemed like another piece of the puzzle falling into place, and I knew I needed to act before it was too late. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Monica wasn't in this relationship for me. She was here for the lifestyle, the money, the access. And now, with my dad gone, she saw an opportunity to cement her position in the family business. Or at least that's what it looked like. But I wasn't about to sit back and let her play me. If she was here for the wrong reasons, I needed to know for sure. And the best way to do that was to create a scenario where her true colors would shine through. I spent a few days planning how I'd do it. It had to be believable, but also hit her where it mattered most, her vision of our future together. If she thought my role in the business wasn't as secure as she'd assumed, I wanted to see how she'd react. Would she stick around, or would she start looking for the next opportunity? One evening, after dinner, I decided to drop the first hint. We were sitting on the couch, and I casually said, "I've been thinking a lot about how things are going to change now that Dad's gone. There's been a lot of talk about restructuring." Monica looked up from her phone. Her interest clearly piqued. Restructuring? What kind of restructuring? I shrugged, keeping my tone nonchalant. Oh, just a few shifts here and there. Nothing major. It's mostly about making sure everything's running smoothly. She nodded, but I could tell she was waiting for me to say more. Over the next few days, I started dropping more breadcrumbs. Little comments about the board, how decisions were being made, and how my role might not be as secure as she thought. I wasn't outright lying, but I was definitely painting a picture that would make her question my future in the company. Finally, one night, I decided to lay it all out. "Monica," I said, sitting her down in the living room, "there's something I need to tell you." She tilted her head, looking concerned. "What is it?" I sighed, trying to look conflicted. "So, I've been going over Dad's will with the family lawyer, and there's something I found out that I wasn't expecting. It turns out I'm not his biological son." Her eyes widened. "What? That doesn't make any sense." "I know," I said, shaking my head. "Apparently, Dad adopted me when I was a baby, but I guess he never wanted it to be a big deal. The thing is, because of that, the majority of the inheritance is going to Luke. He's taking over as CEO, and I'm only getting a small portion." Monica sat there for a moment, processing what I'd just said. I could practically see the wheels turning in her head. "Wait," she said slowly. "So, you're not going to be in charge?" I shook my head. I'll still have a role in the company, but it's more like a consultant. Luke's the one running the show now." Her face tightened, but she quickly masked it with a weak smile. "Well, as long as you're okay with it, right? That's what matters." "Yeah," I said, leaning back. "It's not ideal, but it is what it is. At least I don't have to deal with all the stress of running the company." She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't buying it. Her mind was already racing, trying to figure out what this meant for her. After planting the idea that my role in the company wasn't as secure as Monica thought, I sat back and watched. I didn't have to wait long to see the cracks start forming. It was subtle at first, but the shift in her behavior was impossible to miss once you knew what to look for. She started talking about Luke a lot more. Not just in passing, but in a way that felt calculated. "Luke's really stepping up, huh?" she'd say, almost like she was fishing for something. Or, "It's impressive how he's handling everything. He's got such a strong presence." Hearing her talk about my brother like that made my stomach turn. It wasn't just the words, it was the way she said them, like she was testing how far she could push before I noticed. But I didn't call her out. Not yet. I wanted to see how far she'd go. One day, she brought up Luke in a way that really set me off. We were sitting at the kitchen table, and she was scrolling through her phone as usual. Out of nowhere, she said, "Do you think Luke ever feels overwhelmed? I mean, with all the responsibility he has now?" I shrugged, keeping my tone casual. "Probably. It's a big job." She nodded, her expression thoughtful. "You know, I should check in with him, just to see how he's doing. It's important to support each other during transitions like this." I wanted to laugh at the audacity of it. Monica had never shown much interest in Luke before, and now she was suddenly concerned about his well-being? It was obvious what she was doing, but I played along. "That's nice of you," I said, keeping my voice steady. I'm sure he'd appreciate it. The next few days confirmed everything I'd been suspecting. She started texting Luke more frequently, always under the guise of support. At first, it was harmless stuff, articles about leadership, little comments about how impressed she was with his work, but then it got bolder. One night, Luke forwarded me a message from her. It read, "I admire how decisive you are. You're so good at taking charge. Max is great, but you have this natural confidence that's really inspiring." Reading it made my blood boil, but I held back my anger. I wanted to see how far she was willing to take things. Over the next week, the messages became more personal. She'd ask Luke how his day was going, share stories about her stressful schedule, and even start dropping compliments about his appearance. "You always look so sharp in meetings," one of her texts read. "It's really impressive." Then came the photos. They weren't inappropriate, at least not overtly, but they were clearly meant to get his attention. One was of her at a high-end coffee shop captioned, "This place made me think of you. We should grab coffee here sometime." Another was of her in a sleek outfit saying, "I was thinking about wearing this to the next event. What do you think?" It was painfully transparent. Luke and I had always been close, and he didn't hold back when he showed me everything. "She's not even trying to be subtle," he said, shaking his head. "You sure you don't want me to say something?" "Not yet," I told him. "I want to see how far she'll go." The final straw came when Monica showed up at Luke's office unannounced. He texted me as soon as she arrived, saying she'd claimed she was in the area and wanted to stop by to check on him. She brought him coffee and sat in his office for nearly an hour, talking about the company and how impressed she was with his leadership. "She's laying it on thick," Luke said when he called me afterward. "At this point, it's like she's auditioning for a role." That night, Monica came home acting like nothing had happened. She kissed me on the cheek, asked about my day, and curled up on the couch like everything was normal. But I couldn't even look at her the same way. She wasn't the woman I thought I was going to marry. She wasn't the person I'd fallen in love with. And now that I'd seen her true colors, I couldn't unsee them. The most shocking part was how easy it had been for her to switch gears. The moment she thought my position in the company was shaky, she started angling for Luke. It wasn't about love or loyalty, it was about what she could get out of it. I spent the rest of the week documenting everything. Luke and I kept a record of her texts, photos, and visits. I wanted to make sure that when the time came, there'd be no room for her to deny what she'd done. She thought she was being clever, but she didn't realize that we were one step ahead. By the end of the week, I had more than enough proof to confront her, but I wasn't ready to pull the trigger just yet. I wanted to see if she'd dig herself in even deeper. The way she acted around me was almost comical. She still played the role of the supportive fiancé, asking me how work was going and pretending to care about my stress. But her questions always had an edge to them, like she was fishing for something. "What did the board say about the new project?" she asked one night. "They approved it," I said simply. "That's great," she said, her tone a little too cheerful. "Did Luke present it? He's really good at that kind of thing." It took everything in me not to roll my eyes. "Yeah, he did a great job." Her smile faltered for a second, and I could see the disappointment behind her eyes. She was trying so hard to act like she cared about me, but her true motives were written all over her face. By now, I wasn't just angry. I was disgusted. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone who would do whatever it took to climb the ladder. She wasn't my partner. She was a parasite, but I wasn't about to let her win. The pieces were all in place and the trap was set. Now it was just a matter of time before she realized she'd been caught. By the time Monica agreed to meet Luke at his apartment, I knew she had taken the bait. Every step she'd taken over the past few weeks had been more desperate, more blatant. Now she thought she was closing in on her next move, but she had no idea we were way ahead of her. The plan was simple. Luke invited her over under the pretense of discussing the company. He told her he wanted to go over some ideas about the business, especially since he was the one running things now. Of course, Monica jumped at the opportunity. She made sure to ask if I'd be there, and when Luke casually said I'd be busy, her response was a little too eager. Oh, perfect. That works out. The day of the meeting, I was already set up at Luke's apartment before she arrived. Luke lived in a sleek high-rise with a great view of the city. Exactly the kind of place Monica would have pictured herself living if she played her cards right. I was tucked away in one of the spare bedrooms, phone in hand, ready to record everything. We didn't need a lot of elaborate prep. Monica was so caught up in her own schemes that she didn't bother being cautious. When the doorbell rang, I stayed completely still as I heard Luke let her in. Wow, Monica said, her voice bright and sugary. Your place is amazing. I don't remember it being this nice last time I was here. Luke laughed. Yeah, well, I had a few upgrades done recently. Gotta keep things sharp. Her heels clicked against the hardwood as she walked further inside. I brought this for you, she said, and I could hear her setting something down on the counter. Luke later told me it was a ridiculously expensive painting. Who brings a painting to a casual business talk? Monica, that's who. From my spot in the spare bedroom, I had a perfect view through a small gap in the door. Monica had dressed to impress. Tight red dress, perfectly styled hair, and makeup done like she was heading to some high-end gala instead of a simple meeting. She had that smile on her face, the one she used when she wanted something, and it was nauseating to see it directed at Luke. The conversation started out harmless enough. She asked how he was handling the new responsibility and complimented his leadership skills. She leaned forward slightly as they talked, her body language almost screaming, "Look at me, I'm here for you." Luke, to his credit, played it cool. He didn't give her much, just enough to keep her talking. You're really good at this, she said after a few minutes. It's no wonder your dad trusted you with everything. You've got such a clear vision for the company. Thanks, Luke replied casually, like he wasn't even fazed. She laughed lightly. I mean it. Not everyone has that kind of presence. Max is great, of course, but you have this natural confidence that's just so impressive. Hearing her say that made my stomach churn. She didn't even hesitate to throw me under the bus. She kept finding ways to steer the conversation toward herself. You know, she said, tilting her head, I've always been interested in the business side of things. I think it's fascinating how much potential there is for growth. I'd love to help in any way I can. Luke nodded, playing along. What kind of role do you see yourself in? Monica smiled, her tone becoming more flirtatious. Oh, I don't know. Something supportive. I'm good at organizing and motivating people. I think I could bring a lot to the table. She reached out and lightly touched his arm, laughing at something he said. It was so calculated, so blatant, and I felt a surge of anger as I recorded the whole thing. She didn't even look like she was trying to hide her intentions. After about 20 minutes of small talk and thinly veiled compliments, Monica made her move. You know, she said, her voice dropping slightly, I've been thinking a lot about the future. You and I could make an amazing team. With your leadership and my support, there's no limit to what we could accomplish. She slid a little closer to him on the couch, her knee nearly brushing his. Imagine it. The two of us working side by side. The company would thrive. Luke leaned back slightly, keeping a polite distance. What about Max? He asked, his tone neutral. Her response made me grip my phone tighter. Max is sweet, but let's be real. He doesn't have the drive you do. He's comfortable where he is. But you're different. You're ambitious. You have a vision. My fists clenched as I recorded her words. She had no idea she was digging her own grave. Then came the final move. She placed her hand on Luke's shoulder, leaning in just slightly. I think we could do great things together, Luke. Don't you? Luke glanced at his watch, keeping his cool. You know, I just remembered I have to head out soon. Something urgent came up. Monica blinked, clearly caught off guard. Oh, well, I guess we can pick this up another time. Luke nodded, already standing up and moving toward the door. Yeah, for sure. Thanks for stopping by. I stayed hidden until I heard the front door close behind her. When I finally came out of the room, Luke looked at me and shook his head. She's unbelievable, he said. You got all that? Every word, I replied, holding up my phone. I couldn't even feel angry anymore. Just a cold, quiet satisfaction. She thought she was playing us, but now we had everything we needed to expose her for who she really was. The day of the unmasking arrived, and I won't lie. I'd been looking forward to it. Not in a vindictive way. Okay, maybe a little. But because I wanted to finally close the chapter on Monica's lies and deceit. I'd spent weeks gathering evidence, watching her maneuver, and pretending everything was fine. Now it was time to put all the cards on the table. The setting couldn't have been more perfect. A family dinner to celebrate my dad's legacy. It was the kind of event where everyone close to the family showed up. Extended relatives, business associates, and even a few board members from the company. Monica had, of course, insisted on being there. "It's important to show your family that we're united," she'd said, her tone oozing with self-importance. She arrived dressed to impress, wearing a designer dress I'd bought her months ago. She looked every bit the part of a supportive fiancé, poised, polished, and ready to charm anyone who crossed her path. But I knew the truth. Beneath that perfect exterior was someone who was about to have her entire facade ripped apart. Luke and I had planned everything carefully. We weren't going to cause a scene or turn the dinner into a public spectacle, but we wanted everyone who mattered to see Monica for who she really was. The evidence was ready. Screenshots of her messages, recordings of her conversations, and even the video from Luke's apartment. There was no way she could talk her way out of this. The evening started off normally enough. Guests mingled, and everyone was reminiscing about my dad. Monica played her part perfectly, laughing at the right moments and nodding along to stories she didn't even know. I kept my distance, letting her enjoy her last moments of pretending she belonged in this world. When dinner was served, the real show began. Luke stood up to give a toast, his voice calm and steady as he spoke about our dad's legacy and the values he instilled in us. Monica looked positively glowing, probably thinking she was about to ride the coattails of that legacy into her dream life. But then Luke's tone shifted. "There's something else I want to address tonight," he said, glancing around the room. "It's not easy to talk about, but I think it's important for everyone here to know the truth." The room went silent, all eyes on him. Monica tilted her head, a slight frown crossing her face. She didn't realize what was coming. Not yet. "As you all know, my brother Max has been through a lot recently. Losing Dad, stepping into new responsibilities, it hasn't been easy. And through it all, he's had the support of someone who was supposed to stand by him no matter what." Monica smiled, probably assuming Luke was talking about her in a positive light. Her hand even moved to touch my arm, like she wanted to bask in the attention. "But," Luke continued, his expression hardening, "sometimes people aren't who they appear to be. And unfortunately, Max has learned that the hard way." That's when I stood up. "Monica," I said, turning to face her, "I think it's time we had a real conversation about your intentions." Her smile froze, and her hand dropped from my arm. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice shaky. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and held it up. "This," I said, tapping the screen to play the recording from Luke's apartment. The room filled with her voice as she praised Luke's leadership, criticized me, and suggested that the two of them would make a great team. Her face went pale as the recording continued, the weight of her words hanging in the air. By the time the audio reached the part where she called me sweet but comfortable and leaned into Luke for her final pitch, she looked like she wanted to disappear. When the recording ended, the room was dead silent. All eyes were on Monica, who was now stammering and looking around frantically. That's not what it sounds like," she said, her voice high-pitched and defensive. "You don't understand. This is a misunderstanding." "Is it?" I said, my tone cold. "Because I have screenshots of your texts too. You were planning this from the moment you thought I wasn't the one in charge." She turned to Luke, her expression desperate. "Luke, tell them. You know this isn't what it looks like. I was trying to help." Luke didn't even flinch. "Help? By trying to undermine Max and position yourself as my partner? That's what you call help?" Her parents, who had been sitting across the table, looked horrified. Her mother's face was red with embarrassment, while her father leaned forward, his expression a mix of anger and disbelief. "Monica," her father said, his voice low and stern. "What is he talking about? Is this true?" "Dad, no, it's not true," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "They're twisting everything. They're trying to make me look bad." I stepped closer, my voice calm but firm. "No one's twisting anything. These are your words, Monica. Your actions. You made your choice when you decided to betray me, and now you're facing the consequences." She broke down then, crying and pleading. "Please, Max, you don't understand. I was scared about our future. I didn't know what was going to happen, and I panicked." I shook my head, my voice steady. "You didn't panic. You calculated. You saw an opportunity, and you went for it. But you underestimated me, and my family." Her parents looked like they wanted to crawl under the table. Her father stood up abruptly, muttering apologies to me and Luke before turning to his daughter. "We'll talk about this later," he said sharply. "Get your things. We're leaving." Monica turned to me one last time, her face streaked with tears. Max, please, I love you. We can fix this. But I didn't falter. No, Monica, we can't. You've shown me exactly who you are, and I can't unsee it. This is over. As her father dragged her out of the room, the tension in the air finally broke. The rest of the guests looked awkward, unsure of what to say or do. Luke clapped me on the shoulder, his way of saying, "You did the right thing." After dinner, a few people came up to me, offering their support. Some were shocked, others unsurprised. But everyone agreed on one thing. Monica had no place in my life, or in our family. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt a strange sense of relief. The weight of her lies and manipulation was gone, and I could finally focus on what mattered, rebuilding my life without her in it. The next day, I started getting texts from her. At first, they were the usual desperate attempts to apologize. Max, I'm so sorry. Please, let me explain. Then came the excuses. You misunderstood everything. I only wanted what was best for us. When I didn't respond, she escalated. I can't believe you'd betray me like that. After everything we've been through. I blocked her number, but she found other ways to reach out. Emails, messages through mutual friends, even handwritten letters left at my door. Each one was more frantic than the last. She alternated between begging for forgiveness and accusing me of ruining her life. It was exhausting, but I refused to engage. She didn't deserve a response, and I wasn't going to waste any more energy on her. Then, a week later, she dropped the news. I was sitting in my office going over some paperwork when an email from Monica popped up in my inbox. The subject line read, "You need to know this." Against my better judgment, I opened it. Inside was a single line. I'm pregnant, Max. It's your baby. I stared at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. My first reaction wasn't shock or panic. It was disbelief. This was Monica, the same woman who had lied, manipulated, and betrayed me at every turn. There was no way she was telling the truth now. This wasn't about a baby. This was her last-ditch effort to regain control. Still, I couldn't ignore it completely. I forwarded the email to Luke with a short message. Look at this nonsense. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was Luke calling me. Did you respond? He asked. Nope, I said. And I'm not going to. She's full of it. Good, he said. She's probably hoping you'll freak out and go running back to her. Don't give her the satisfaction. I wasn't planning to. I knew Monica well enough to see through her game. She'd lied about everything else. Why should this be any different? But Monica wasn't giving up that easily. Over the next few days, she started contacting my family. She called my mom, claiming she was pregnant and terrified about what to do. She even reached out to Luke, saying she needed to talk to him about the future of our family. Luke shut her down immediately. If it's Max's, get a paternity test, he told her flatly. Otherwise, stop wasting my time. When that didn't work, she turned to her own parents. I don't know exactly what she told them, but whatever it was, it didn't fly. By then, her parents were already furious with her over the scandal at the dinner. Her dad had apparently been receiving calls from people in their social circle, asking what had happened and why their daughter was being talked about in such unflattering terms. For a family as proud and image-conscious as hers, it was the ultimate humiliation. After one particularly heated argument, her parents kicked her out. She showed up at my apartment that same night, pounding on the door and yelling for me to let her in. When I didn't answer, she slumped against the door, crying loudly enough for my neighbors to hear. Max, please, she sobbed. I have nowhere else to go. I need you. We can fix this. For the baby's sake. Eventually, one of my neighbors came out and told her to leave. She screamed at them, calling them names, but she finally stormed off, muttering about how I'd regret this. That was the last time I saw her in person, but her attempts to contact me didn't stop. She kept sending emails, insisting she was pregnant and needed my help. I ignored them all. A few weeks later, I heard from a mutual acquaintance that Monica had been staying on friends' couches, trying to scrape together enough money to get by. Her parents had completely cut her off, and word of her behavior had spread far enough that most people didn't want anything to do with her. She'd gone from living a comfortable, glamorous life to struggling just to survive. The last email I got from her came about a month after the dinner. It was long, rambling, and full of contradictions. She said she was sorry, that she loved me, that she hated me, that she was pregnant, that she wasn't pregnant but might be, that she couldn't live without me, and that she hoped I burned in hell. It was the most unhinged thing I'd ever read, and I deleted it without replying. Now, months later, my life is peaceful again. I've moved on, focusing on the things that truly matter, my family, the business, and my own happiness. Luke and I are closer than ever, and the company is thriving under our leadership. Every now and then, someone will ask about Monica, and I'll just shrug and say, she's in the past. Because that's exactly where she belongs. In the past. Her greed, her lies, her manipulation, it all led to her downfall. She thought she could play me, but in the end, she only played herself. I know who I am, and I know what I deserve. And it sure as hell isn't someone like her. Story 6. When I was 14, my parents told me to grow up and stop being a burden, then left me at a truck stop in the desert. I never spoke to them again until my sister's wedding invite arrived 17 years later. Hey Reddit. So this is going to be rough, but I need to get it out there. My parents abandoned me at a truck stop in the middle of nowhere when I was 14 years old. Told me I was a burden and drove off. I slept in a drainage ditch that night. Fast forward 17 years, and I just got a wedding invitation from my sister with a note from my parents like nothing ever happened. Here's what went down. I'm Owen, 31 years old now. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I opened it. Cream-colored expensive paper, my sister Madison's name printed in elegant script across the return address. I knew what it was before I touched it. 17 years since I last saw my parents, Robert and Linda Mitchell. 17 years since they drove away from that truck stop outside Henderson, Nevada, leaving me standing next to a grimy bathroom with nothing but a backpack and $23 in my pocket. But let me back up and give you the full picture of how messed up my family was from the beginning. Growing up in Fresno, we looked like the perfect family from the outside. Big house in a gated community, 2 successful parents, 2 kids. My dad Robert ran a boutique architecture firm, specializing in medical buildings and corporate offices. My mom Linda was a partner at one of the biggest law firms in the Central Valley, specializing in corporate litigation. They made good money, drove nice cars, belonged to the country club. On paper, we had everything. Behind closed doors? Different story entirely. I was always the problem child. Madison was 2 years older, straight A's from kindergarten on, captain of the volleyball team, student body president, debate team champion. Basically the daughter who never caused issues. She was organized, focused, naturally gifted at everything academic. Teachers loved her. My parents' friends would always comment on how impressive she was, how she was going places. Then there was me. I struggled with school from day one. Not because I was stupid. My test scores showed I was actually pretty smart, but because I had undiagnosed ADHD that nobody bothered to investigate. I couldn't sit still during lessons. I'd start homework assignments and forget what I was doing halfway through. I'd lose papers between my backpack and my desk. Simple stuff that came easy to everyone else felt like climbing a mountain for me. My dad said I was lazy. My mom said I just needed to apply myself. When I was in 3rd grade and brought home my first D, my mom sat me down and gave me this speech about how disappointed she was. Madison never brings home grades like this, she said. What's wrong with you? I didn't know what was wrong with me. I just knew that no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't keep up. By middle school, the comparison to Madison was constant. She'd come home with straight A's and awards, and my parents would celebrate with her favorite dinner and praise. I'd come home with B's and C's, which honestly took me twice as much effort as Madison's A's took her, and I'd get lectures about not living up to my potential. Your sister manages to excel at everything, my dad would say during these talks. She's taking advanced classes, she's in 3 extracurricular activities, and she still gets perfect grades. You're taking regular classes and can barely pass. It's embarrassing. That word, embarrassing, came up a lot. I was an embarrassment to them, a stain on their perfect family portrait. When I asked for help with homework, my father would sigh like I'd asked him to move a mountain. He'd glance at my assignment, say something like, "This is basic stuff, Owen. Figure it out yourself," and go back to his architectural plans. You can't expect everyone to hold your hand through life. Madison figured it out on her own. So can you. My mom was worse in some ways. She'd start to help, then get frustrated when I didn't understand her explanations. I've explained this 3 times now. Are you even listening? Madison got this concept immediately when she was your age. I don't understand why you're being so difficult. I tried, man. I really did. But the harder I tried, the worse things got. By 14, I was pulling C's and D's despite spending hours on homework every night. I'd forget to turn in assignments even when I'd completed them. I'd lose track of time and show up late to class. My parents' disappointment hung over our house like smoke, thick and choking. The worst part was how they talked about me to other people, like I wasn't even there. At family gatherings, they'd brag about Madison to anyone who'd listen. She just got accepted to this prestigious summer program at Stanford. We're so proud. Then someone would ask about me. And my parents would get this tight-lipped look. Owen's finding his way. He's been struggling a bit with school, but we're working on it. Translation: Our son is a disappointment we don't know what to do with. Madison wasn't mean about it, at least not directly, but she was so used to being the golden child that she didn't even notice how differently we were treated. She'd complain about getting an A- like it was the end of the world, and my parents would comfort her and help her strategize how to do better. I'd celebrate getting a B on a test I'd studied for all week, and they'd ask why it wasn't an A. Different standards, different worlds, same family. The summer before ninth grade, things escalated to a breaking point. My mom landed this huge promotion at her law firm. Made partner, big deal, fancy celebration dinner at the most expensive restaurant in town. My dad's architecture firm won some prestigious contract to design a massive medical complex downtown, a multi-million-dollar project that would take 3 years. Madison got accepted into this competitive summer program at Stanford for high school students. Only 30 kids from across the country got in. The whole family was winning. Everyone was succeeding, moving up, achieving their dreams. And me? I failed algebra. Had to retake it in summer school while everyone else was celebrating their victories. The report card came in mid-June. I knew it was bad before I opened it, but seeing that F in black and white made my stomach drop. I'd worked so hard in that class, stayed after school for help, spent hours trying to understand polynomials and quadratic equations. None of it stuck. My brain just couldn't process the abstract concepts the way it needed to. I waited until dinner to tell them. Figured maybe if they were all together, the blow would be softened. I was wrong. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is?" my mother asked, her voice sharp as glass. She'd just gotten home from work, still in her expensive suit, her partner nameplate probably still warm from being mounted on her new office door. Madison's professors at Stanford are asking about our family. They want to know about her background, her home life. What am I supposed to say? That our youngest can't even pass high school math? He's not even trying, my dad added, not looking at me. He was cutting his steak with more force than necessary. He's given up. I see it every day. He comes home from school and just gives up. I haven't given up, I said quietly. I studied every night. I went to tutoring. I don't understand why it's not working. Because you're not applying yourself, my mom snapped. Madison takes twice as many classes as you, participates in extracurricular activities, volunteers, and still maintains a 4.0. You have half her course load and you can't even pass basic math. It's a choice, Owen. You're choosing to fail. That hurt worse than anything. The idea that I was deliberately failing, that I wanted this, that I enjoyed disappointing them. I wanted to scream that I was trying harder than Madison ever had to, that what came naturally to her required every ounce of effort I had. But I knew they wouldn't believe me. My dad set down his fork. Your mother and I have been talking. This pattern can't continue. You're going to be in high school in the fall. High school grades matter for college. We're not going to let you throw away your future because you can't be bothered to do the work. I am doing the work. Clearly not enough, he interrupted. Madison's already getting recruitment letters from universities. You know what you're getting? Letters about summer school schedules. It's pathetic. Madison sat there silently through all of this, pushing food around her plate. She looked uncomfortable but didn't say anything in my defense. Never did. She'd learned early that staying out of it was the safest play. The rest of that summer was a nightmare. While Madison prepared for Stanford, buying new clothes and special notebooks and getting excited about meeting brilliant students from around the country, I sat in a hot classroom 5 days a week with other kids who'd failed their classes. The teacher was kind but overworked, teaching 3 different subjects to kids who didn't want to be there. I passed with a C-. It took every ounce of effort I had, but I passed. My parents didn't congratulate me. They didn't even acknowledge it. The same week I finished summer school, Madison came home from Stanford with stories of autonomous robots she'd built, professors who'd praised her work, students from MIT and Caltech who'd exchanged contact info with her for future projects. At dinner that night, my dad asked her detailed questions about her program, the curriculum, the other students, the facilities. My mom talked about how this would look amazing on college applications. They were already planning her future, which Ivy League schools she'd apply to, what summer internships she should pursue next year. Nobody asked about summer school. Nobody mentioned the C- I'd fought so hard for. That's when I really understood. I wasn't part of the family vision. I was an obstacle to it. August 19th. That's the date I'll never forget. We were driving back from visiting my grandmother in Los Angeles. She lived in a retirement community in Pasadena, and we made the trip twice a year. This time, it had been particularly awkward because my grandmother kept asking me about school, and my parents kept deflecting with vague answers about how I was working on improving. Madison sat in the front seat for most of the drive back, talking about her summer program at Stanford. Some robotics thing where she'd built an autonomous vehicle that won their competition. She'd gotten a certificate signed by the program director and a letter of recommendation for college applications. My parents were already planning how to leverage this achievement. I was in the back, staring out the window, exhausted from 2 hours of listening to how accomplished my sister was. The landscape shifted from LA's sprawl to the Mojave Desert. Empty, brown, endless. Heat shimmered off the pavement even though the sun was starting to drop toward the horizon. Somewhere past Barstow, heading toward Vegas on I-15, my dad suddenly said he needed to stop. "Need coffee and to stretch my legs," he announced. "We'll stop at that truck stop coming up." It was one of those massive places right off the interstate. Gas pumps in multiple rows. A Denny's attached to the main building. A convenience store. Trucker showers. Even a small chapel for long-haul drivers. Semis lined up in the back lot like sleeping elephants. Desert stretched out in every direction, brown and hostile under the late afternoon sun. My dad pulled up to a pump, but didn't start filling the tank. Just turned off the engine and sat there for a moment. My mom was unusually quiet, staring straight ahead. Madison was texting someone, probably her boyfriend, not paying attention to the weird tension in the car. "Everyone out," my dad said. "We're taking a break." My mom went straight to the bathroom. Madison stayed near the car, leaning against the passenger door with her phone. I wandered toward the main building, thinking maybe I'd grab a snack or use the bathroom myself. That's when my dad called me back. "Owen, come here." His voice had that flat quality it got when he was about to say something he'd already decided. I walked back to the car, confused. He was standing by the open trunk. My backpack, the one I'd brought on the trip with just my clothes, a book, some snacks, was sitting on the edge of the trunk bed. "Your mother and I have been talking," he started. His face was completely blank, like he was discussing a business transaction. "You're 14 years old now. You're old enough to understand consequences. Old enough to start taking responsibility for yourself." My stomach twisted into a knot. "What do you mean?" "We're tired, Owen." He said my name like it tasted bad in his mouth. "We're tired of the drama, the poor grades, the constant neediness. We've tried everything. Tutors, study groups, accommodations at school, incentives, punishments. Nothing works because you don't want it to work." "That's not true." "Don't interrupt me." His voice was cold, the way he probably talked to contractors who'd messed up his projects. "You need to grow up and stop being such a burden on this family. We have Madison's future to focus on. She has real potential, real opportunities, and we can't keep wasting our time and energy on someone who refuses to help themselves." My mother appeared behind him then. I'd been so focused on my dad that I hadn't noticed her coming back from the bathroom. Her face was hard, makeup perfect, hair still styled even after hours in the car. She looked at me the way you'd look at a stain on expensive furniture, with mild disgust and annoyance. "We've given you every opportunity," she said. "Private tutors that cost us hundreds of dollars. A private educational consultant who designed a study plan specifically for you. Accommodations at school that Madison never needed. But you refuse to meet us halfway. You refuse to put in even basic effort. I don't understand what you're saying." My voice cracked. My hands were shaking. Some part of me knew what was coming, but my brain refused to accept it. "You're old enough to figure things out on your own," my dad said. He picked up my backpack and held it out to me like he was handing back a borrowed tool. "There's some money in the front pocket. I suggest you use it wisely. Make better choices than you've been making." I didn't take the backpack. Just stood there, frozen, staring at him. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of scare tactic, a lesson they were teaching me. Parents didn't just abandon their kids at truck stops in the middle of nowhere. "Dad, what are you doing?" "This is your wake-up call," my mom interrupted. Her voice clipped and businesslike. "Maybe when you realize how good you had it, you'll appreciate what you've thrown away. Maybe you'll finally grow up and take responsibility for your own failures instead of expecting us to fix everything for you." "I'm not throwing anything away," I said, my voice rising. I'm trying so hard." "No, you're not," my dad said firmly. He set the backpack on the ground between us. "If you were trying, you'd be succeeding. Madison tries, and look at her accomplishments. You make excuses and expect us to keep carrying you. We're done carrying you." They turned and walked back toward the car. Just like that. No hesitation, no second thoughts. My mom got in the passenger seat and immediately pulled down the visor mirror, checking her makeup like this was completely normal. Like she hadn't just told her 14-year-old son she was abandoning him in the desert. I stood there, frozen, certain this was some cruel joke. Any second now, they'd turn around. They'd laugh. That harsh, mocking laugh my dad used when he thought someone was being ridiculous. And tell me to get back in the car. They'd say they were teaching me a lesson about taking things for granted. The engine started. Madison's face appeared in the rear window. She looked back at me, and for a second our eyes met. Her face was pale, eyes wide. She looked scared. She mouthed something I couldn't make out. Maybe I'm sorry, maybe I don't know. But she didn't move, didn't open the door, didn't scream at our parents to stop. She just turned around slowly and faced forward. The car backed out of the parking space. My dad turned the wheel, put it in drive, and headed for the exit. I stood there watching them drive away, my backpack still on the ground at my feet, the late afternoon sun beating down on my head. A semi-truck pulled into the pump next to where we'd been parked, the air brakes hissing, and I flinched like I'd been slapped. They were really gone. I stood in that parking lot for 20 minutes, maybe longer. The sun was setting, painting the desert sky in violent shades of orange and purple. Other cars came and went. People looked at me, a teenage kid standing alone with a backpack, no parents in sight, but nobody said anything. Maybe they thought I was waiting for someone. Maybe they just didn't want to get involved. I was 80 miles from home in the middle of nowhere. The truck stop sat like an island in an ocean of empty desert. I had no phone. My parents had taken it 2 weeks earlier as punishment for failing a quiz. No way to call anyone. No plan for what came next. Finally, my legs started working again. I picked up the backpack and walked toward the main building, my mind blank, moving on autopilot. I walked to the main building and found a payphone near the bathrooms. The ancient kind with metal cords and that sticky residue on the handset. First quarter I fed, it didn't connect. The second quarter got me a dial tone. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely push the buttons. I called our house, let it ring, and ring, and ring. Nobody answered. Tried again. Nothing. I stood there for a minute, the dial tone humming in my ear, trying to figure out what to do next. I didn't have any other numbers memorized. All my contacts had been in my phone. My grandmother didn't have a cell, just a landline at the retirement community, and I didn't know that number by heart. Tried our house 3 more times over the next hour. Each time, same result. Just ringing into the void. They were home by now, they had to be, but they weren't answering. Maybe they'd unplugged the phone. Maybe they were sitting there listening to it ring, waiting to see how long I'd keep trying. By 10 p.m., the truck stop had mostly emptied out. A few semis were parked in the back lot with their running lights on, drivers probably sleeping in their cabs. The Denny's was closing up. The guy working the register at the convenience store kept giving me suspicious looks through the window. A security guard, older guy, maybe 60, with a gut that hung over his belt, walked up to me while I was sitting on a bench outside the main entrance. "You waiting for someone, kid?" "Yeah," I lied. "My parents. They went to grab something and told me to wait here." He looked around the mostly empty parking lot. "When did they leave?" "A while ago. They'll be back soon." He didn't look convinced. "Well, I can't let you stay inside overnight once we lock up. Property rules. If they're not back in the next hour, you'll need to find somewhere else to wait." "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He walked away, and I realized I was about to have nowhere to go. I walked around the perimeter of the truck stop, looking for anywhere I could sleep that wouldn't be immediately visible. Found a drainage ditch behind the truck parking area. A concrete channel maybe 4 feet wide and 3 feet deep, where runoff from the parking lot would flow during rain. It was dry now, just oil-stained concrete and desert dust. I climbed down into it and sat with my back against the sloped wall. It was cooler down here, at least. The concrete held the night chill, and the walls blocked some of the wind that had picked up as the temperature dropped. I curled up in the ditch with my backpack as a pillow. The ground was hard and smelled like diesel and something chemical I couldn't identify. I could hear the highway traffic from Interstate 15, a constant low roar that never quite stopped. Sometimes a semi would pull into the lot, air brakes hissing, engine rumbling, and I'd tense up, worried someone would see me. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. I was terrified someone would find me and call the police. Terrified no one would find me, and I'd just be stuck here forever. I cried until my throat was raw and my eyes burned, then lay there staring at the stars, trying to understand what I'd done that was so terrible I deserved this. The desert night was cold in a way I wasn't prepared for. My sweatshirt wasn't warm enough. I curled into a tight ball, arms wrapped around myself, shivering. Every noise made me jump. Scurrying animals, wind rattling loose trash, the occasional car door slamming. At some point, exhaustion must have won because I drifted into a half-sleep. Not quite unconscious, but not fully aware either. Had dreams about being in the car, Madison turning around to look at me, but her face kept changing. Sometimes scared, sometimes blank, sometimes accusatory like this was my fault. When the sun came up, light creeping into the ditch and warming the concrete, I felt like I'd been run over. Everything hurt. My back from the hard ground, my head from crying and dehydration, my chest from the weight of what had happened. I climbed out of the ditch and went to the bathroom in the main building, washed my face with hand soap that smelled like industrial chemicals. In the mirror, I looked like hell. Red eyes, dirt on my face, hair sticking up in all directions. A woman coming out of the ladies' room gave me a concerned look, but didn't say anything. I counted the money in my backpack. $23 in cash. That was it. My entire net worth. Bought a granola bar and a bottle of water from the vending machines, leaving me with $19. Sat on the curb near the gas pumps, eating slowly, trying to make the food last, trying to figure out what came next. That's when I met Patricia. She came out of an RV parked at the edge of the lot. A big motorhome with Oregon plates, the kind retired couples drove across the country. She was maybe 50 years old, with kind eyes and gray hair pulled into a ponytail. Wearing jeans and a flannel shirt, she looked like someone's grandmother. She saw me sitting on the curb, probably looking like hell, and walked over with a coffee cup in her hand. "You okay, sweetheart?" I looked up at her. "Yeah, I'm fine." She sat down on the curb next to me, knees cracking as she did. "I saw you here last night. Saw you this morning. Still in the same clothes. Parents around?" Something about the way she asked, not suspicious or accusatory, just genuinely concerned, broke whatever resolve I had left. The words poured out in a messy, desperate rush. I told her everything. About the failing grades, the constant disappointment, the truck stop abandonment, sleeping in the ditch, my parents not answering the phone. Patricia listened without interrupting. Her expression grew darker with each sentence I spoke. When I finally ran out of words, she was quiet for a moment, just looking at me with something that looked like anger, but not at me. "Where do you live, sweetheart?" "Fresno," I said. "But I can't go home. They don't want me there." "What are your parents' names?" I told her. "Robert and Linda Mitchell." Gave her our home phone number, the one I'd been calling that kept ringing unanswered. Patricia's jaw tightened. "Those people aren't parents. They're criminals. What they did is called child abandonment, and it's illegal. Very illegal. I don't want to get them in trouble," I said, which was stupid considering what they'd done to me. "Honey, they're already in trouble. They just don't know it yet." She stood up, knees cracking again. "Come on, we're going to the police." I gave the officers my parents' information, explained what happened. They called my house. My mother answered. I sat in a plastic chair at the station, while the officer talked to her on the phone in another room. When he came back, his face was grim. "Your mother says you ran away from the truck stop after an argument. She says they looked for you for an hour before having to leave for an important business meeting." "That's not true," I said, my voice shaking. "They left me there on purpose. My dad gave me my backpack and said I needed to grow up. They just drove away." The officer looked uncomfortable. "It's your word against theirs. And they're saying they want you to come home. They're very concerned." "I'm not going back. You're a minor. You don't have a choice." Patricia stepped in then. "I'm a licensed foster care provider in Oregon. I can take temporary custody while this gets sorted out through proper channels." The officer looked relieved to have an option that didn't involve immediate family conflict. "We'll need to contact Child Protective Services and start the paperwork." What followed was 3 weeks of bureaucracy. CPS opened an investigation. My parents were interviewed multiple times. They stuck to their story. I'd run away. They'd searched for me. They were devastated by my disappearance. Madison was interviewed too. She told them she saw me standing by the car when they drove away. But my parents coached her to say she'd been asleep and didn't see anything. The investigation went nowhere. No proof either way. Just my word against theirs. But here's the thing. Patricia didn't give up. She petitioned for emergency foster placement, arguing that sending me back to people who'd admitted, in their version, to leaving a 14-year-old at a truck stop was dangerous. The judge agreed to temporary placement while things got sorted out. My parents didn't fight it. They showed up to one hearing, sat stone-faced while their lawyer argued they'd been misunderstood, then never came back. They signed paperwork relinquishing custody without a fight. Just like that, I was gone, and they were free to focus on Madison's success without the burden of their failure son. I moved to Oregon with Patricia. She lived in a small town called Ashland, ran a licensed foster home for kids who needed a safe place. I was her only placement at the time. She enrolled me in the local high school, got me tested for ADHD, surprise, I had it, along with a processing disorder, and started me on medication and accommodations that actually helped. For the first time in my life, school became manageable. Not easy, I still had to work hard, but manageable. I pulled B's and C's instead of D's and F's. I joined the cross-country team because running cleared my head. I made friends who didn't know anything about my past, except that I was Patricia's foster kid. I graduated high school with a 3.2 GPA, got accepted to Oregon State. Patricia helped me fill out financial aid forms, drove me to campus for orientation, cried when I moved into my dorm. She was at every milestone my real parents should have been at but weren't. I studied social work. Figured if someone like Patricia could save my life, maybe I could do the same for other kids. Got my bachelor's, then my master's. Started working for Child Protective Services, doing investigations and advocacy work. Met my wife Kelsey during grad school. She was studying psychology, and we bonded over shared interest in helping kids who'd been failed by the system. We got married 3 years ago. Small ceremony, just close friends, and Patricia. No family drama because I didn't have family beyond Patricia anymore. I hadn't spoken to my parents in 17 years. Hadn't tried to contact them. Hadn't responded to the few attempts they'd made. A birthday card when I turned 18, which I threw away. A Facebook friend request from my mom that I ignored. A Christmas card 5 years ago that went straight into the trash. As far as I was concerned, they'd made their choice when they drove away from that truck stop. I made mine by building a life without them. Then 3 weeks ago, the wedding invitation arrived. I stared at it for days. Madison was getting married. Part of me wanted to throw it away like everything else from that family. But another part of me was curious. 17 years is a long time. Had she turned out like them? Did she even remember what happened? Did she care? The invitation included a handwritten note on separate paper. Madison's handwriting, not my parents'. Owen, I don't know if you'll even open this, but I needed to try. I've thought about that day every single day for 17 years. I was too scared to do anything. I regret it more than you'll ever know. If you're willing, I'd really like you to be at my wedding. No pressure, no expectations, just an invitation from your sister who misses you. Madison. Kelsey found me sitting at the kitchen table that night, staring at the note. What's wrong? She asked. I handed her the invitation. She read it, then looked at me. What do you want to do? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to ignore it. They don't get to just pop back into my life like nothing happened. But Madison, she was just a kid too. 16 years old when it happened. What was she supposed to do? That's up to you to decide, Kelsey said. But if you do go, I'm coming with you. Not letting you walk back into that situation alone. I called Patricia that night, told her about the invitation. She listened quietly, then asked one question. What do you need from this, kiddo? If you go, what are you hoping to get? I thought about it. Closure, I guess. I want to see Madison as an adult, see if she turned into them, or if she's different. And if my parents are there, I want them to see what I became despite them. Then go, Patricia said. But go for yourself, not for them. 2 weeks later, Kelsey and I flew to Fresno for the wedding. I'd RSVP'd yes, but hadn't reached out to Madison directly. Figured I'd see how things went. The rehearsal dinner was at this upscale vineyard in the foothills. We arrived late on purpose, didn't want to deal with the pre-dinner awkwardness. Walked into a private dining room with maybe 40 people. Wedding party, close family, friends. Madison saw me immediately. She was standing near the bar with her fiancé, a tall guy with an easy smile. Her face went pale, then flushed. She excused herself and walked straight over to me. Owen, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You came. I hoped, but I didn't think you would. Got your note, I said. She looked older, obviously. 20 years had passed, but she still had the same eyes, same nervous habit of tucking hair behind her ear when she was anxious. Can we talk? She asked. Somewhere private? We ended up on the vineyard's patio, away from the noise. Kelsey gave my hand a squeeze and went to grab drinks, giving us space. I'm so sorry, Madison started, tears already forming. I know that's not enough. I know it doesn't fix anything. But I need you to know that I think about that day all the time. I was terrified. They told me if I said anything to the police, they'd make my life hell. I was 16 and stupid and scared, and I chose wrong. I chose them over you, and I've regretted it every single day since. I didn't say anything at first. Just let her talk. I didn't realize how messed up it was until I got to college, she continued. I started talking to people, hearing about their families, and I realized ours wasn't normal. What they did to you wasn't normal. I tried to bring it up with them a few times, and they shut me down completely. Said you'd made your choices and they'd made theirs. Where are they now? I asked. They're not coming to the wedding, Madison said, wiping her eyes. I didn't invite them. Haven't spoken to them in 3 years. They wanted me to marry this guy from Dad's firm, some architect's son they'd been pushing me toward. When I told them I was dating Brandon instead, they lost it. Said I was throwing away my future. When I got engaged anyway, they gave me an ultimatum. Break up with him or they'd cut me off. She laughed bitterly. I chose him. And you know what? They actually cut me off. Disowned me for not following their plan. That's when I realized they didn't love us. They loved control. We were props in their perfect life performance. And the second we stopped playing our roles, we were disposable. Yeah, I said quietly. I figured that out 17 years ago. I'm so sorry I didn't figure it out sooner, Madison said. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. I'm sorry I let them turn me into someone who could watch her brother get abandoned and do nothing. We talked for almost an hour. She told me about therapy, about confronting the guilt she'd carried, about cutting ties with our parents when she realized they'd never change. I told her about Patricia, about college, about becoming a social worker specifically to help kids like I'd been. You turned out amazing, she said, despite everything they did to you. And I'm so proud to be your sister, even if I don't deserve to be. You were a kid too, I said. We both were. They were the adults. They're the ones who failed. Before we went back inside, Madison asked, would you be willing to give a speech tomorrow? At the wedding? I know that's a lot to ask, but I want people to know my real family. Not the version Mom and Dad sold everyone for years. I thought about it. About walking into a room full of people who probably knew my parents' version of the story. That I'd run away, gotten into trouble, wanted nothing to do with the family. About setting the record straight. Yeah, I said. I can do that. The wedding the next day was beautiful. Outdoor ceremony in the vineyard gardens, string lights everywhere, Madison looking genuinely happy in a way I'd never seen when we were kids. Patricia flew in that morning, met Madison properly, cried happy tears. She sat next to me during the ceremony. My parents never showed. I'd asked Madison if they knew I'd be there, and she said she'd told them. Apparently, my mother had called and said they weren't comfortable with me attending, but knew Madison wouldn't change her mind. So they chose not to come, rather than face me. During the reception, when it was time for speeches, I stood up. The room quieted. I could see some of my parents' old friends scattered throughout, people who'd known me as the troubled younger son who'd run away as a teenager. Most of you don't know me, I started. I'm Madison's brother, Owen. We haven't seen each other in 17 years because when I was 14 years old, our parents drove me to a truck stop in the desert and left me there. Told me I was a burden and drove away. I slept in a ditch that night. You could hear a pin drop. I was saved by a woman named Patricia. I gestured to where she sat, tears already streaming down her face, who found me the next morning and refused to leave me behind. She became my foster mother, helped me finish school, helped me become the person I am today. She showed me what real love looks like, the kind that doesn't come with conditions or disappear when things get hard. I looked at Madison, who was crying openly now, her fiancé's arm around her. I'm here today because Madison had the courage to reach out after all these years. Because she did the work to break free from the same toxic patterns we both grew up in. Because she chose love over control, authenticity over appearances. And that's what family should be. Choosing each other, showing up, doing the hard work. I talked about building the family you need when the family you're born into fails you. About Patricia, about Kelsey, about the people who'd proved through actions that I mattered. I didn't mention my parents by name again, but I told enough of the story that anyone paying attention could fill in the blanks. When I finished, the applause was thunderous. People stood. Several older guests who'd clearly known my parents looked shocked, whispering to each other. Patricia was sobbing. Madison crossed the room and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being strong enough to tell the truth. An older woman approached me afterward, one of my mother's longtime friends from her law firm. Robert and Linda aren't here, she said carefully. Did something happen? They weren't feeling well, I said neutrally. She studied my face. You're Owen, the younger child. They said you ran away years ago, got mixed up with drugs, wanted nothing to do with the family. That's not what happened. I gathered that from your speech, she said quietly. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad Madison had someone who loved her the right way. Several other guests approached throughout the evening. Some had heard whispers over the years, inconsistencies in my parents' stories. Others were simply moved by the speech and wanted to express support. Each conversation felt like another brick being removed from the wall of lies my parents had built. Brandon's mother, Helen, pulled me aside before dessert. Madison told me what your parents really did, she said quietly. I just want you to know that you're family now. Brandon's family, which makes you my family. If you ever need anything, you call me. The kindness from these strangers, people who had no obligation to me, was overwhelming. I'd spent so long believing something was fundamentally wrong with me that I was unlovable. But here were dozens of people moved by my story, offering support without conditions. Later that night, back at the hotel, Kelsey helped me process everything. You gave them an out, she said. They could have stayed away quietly, but instead they're probably spinning this to anyone who will listen. Let them, I said. The people who matter know the truth now. Madison knows. Patricia knows. Everyone at that dinner knows. Their reputation is damaged, whether they realize it yet or not. Do you think they'll try to contact Madison? Probably. They'll try to control the narrative, make themselves the victims. But Madison's ready for it. She's been ready for years. 3 days later, Madison called me. They're furious, she said. Mom's been calling nonstop, saying you blackmailed them, that you're trying to destroy the family. What did you tell her? I told her the only person who destroyed this family was her. Then I blocked both their numbers. Brandon and I are moving to Seattle next month for his job. Fresh start, away from them. Good. Owen, will you visit us once we're settled? Yeah, I said. I'd like that. We talk every week now. She's met Patricia several times, calls her Aunt Patricia like I do. She's working through her own guilt about what happened. She told me she wishes she'd been brave enough to leave with me that day, but she'd been too scared. I understand that fear. Leaving is hard. Surviving after leaving is harder. As for my parents, I never heard from them directly. But I heard through Madison that they're spinning a story to their friends about me being mentally unstable, about having to make the difficult choice to distance themselves for their own well-being. Some people believe them, some don't. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.